Nigerian nightmare!
Kamaru Usman, he is a monster.
12-0 in the UFC, yet to taste defeat.
I'm at the top of the mountain. I'm the champion.
I'm gonna fight for the title.
Kamaru Usman, I'm next.
He's gonna be a war.
So good on his feet, so good on the ground.
Let's go!
I'll be at the top for a long, long time.
Kamaru Usman!
It's my job to go in there and put his dreams on hold.
Let's go indeed. Welcome to it. It's the UFC 258 official weigh-in show here on BT Sport. It's a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you very much for coming along to join us. I'm Adam Cattrall, and as you can see, I am joined by the man now affectionately known in the UFC circles as the Commissioner, Nick P. How are you, big boy?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, cut my own hair today, so I'm feeling nice and fresh. Looking forward to seeing the weigh-ins.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because there will be people obviously tuning in from around the world to this exclusive feed that we're bringing to them on BT Sport thinking, how are the boys looking so fresh in lockdown? All the barbershops are shut right now. Well, we've been online. We've got ourselves a set of clippers. Mine's very easy to do, as you can see. I'm follically challenged. But him this afternoon, multiple mirrors around the back of his head. Looking good, my man. Did you do all that yourself? Or did you get one of your kids to do it?
No, honestly, I'm quite impressed with it. I've done quite a good job there, haven't I? Got my 6-year-old just to touch up the edges, so I'm feeling fresh.
Lovely. Good. Well, we've got a big one lined up this weekend, which goes down on BT Sport, of course, and very shortly, in around about 13 minutes' time, we're going to start seeing some of these athletes hit the scales, and hopefully there's not going to be any problems because we're looking forward to an absolutely stacked card. As you can see there, everything's lining up nicely with the welterweight title being on the line between Kamaru Usman and his number one contender in Gilbert Burns. Macy Barber's back in action as well in that flyweight contest against Alexa Grasso. That should be an absolute cracker. Kelvin Gastelum, bit of a crossroads fight for him as he takes on Ian Heinisch, a man with an unbelievable story, which we'll touch upon throughout the course of this broadcast. A lightweight bout between Bobby Green and Jim Miller. Never, ever write off Jim Miller, and we'll talk about that later as well. And Maki Pitolo and Julian Marquez, who's making his UFC debut this weekend. Julian Marquez. They get the main card underway on BT Sport. And as you can see there, that gets underway at 3 a.m. Prelims from 1 a.m. And we're going to be talking about them throughout the course of this show as well. Nicholas, what a wonderful way to, I say, kick things off. Things have already kicked off this year, but over the next 40-odd days, there are going to be 7 undisputed UFC champions in action. 5 of them are going to be taking on the number 1 and number 2 contender in their respective weight divisions, and 2 of them are fighting each other as Izzy meets Jan Blachowicz. It's absolutely sensational. That's what fight sports is all about. The best against the best, giving us the fights that we want to see.
And that's what we're talking about, the first 12 weeks of the year, the first 3 months of the year. We're already getting this kind of spoiled riches. You know, we're fresh from Fight Island as well, where we've seen Conor McGregor and a big shake-up in the lightweight division. Come on, man. Coronavirus or not, lockdown or not, the UFC has delivered time after time after time. And it looks like 2021, never mind 2020 being incredible. 2021 so far is just setting up to break all the records in the UFC, which is absolutely bonkers when you look at the global situation right now.
And what a way to get all that off to a flyer this weekend with this fascinating narrative between these two athletes. Kamaru Usman, obviously the champion at welterweight, taking on his long-time training buddy in Gilbert Burns, a guy that I suppose shot to a lot of prominence for a few people. Last year, he's the guy that took advantage of a few opportunities that came his way. UFC London fell off. It was supposed to be Leon Edwards and Tyron Woodley. Burns stepped in when that was shifted over to the States. He demolished the former champion and then nearly got himself a title shot immediately in July, didn't he? He ended up getting COVID. It fell off, but we find ourselves here now with this world title shot. The narrative itself between these two guys is the thing that I think is captivating and catching a lot of people's attention, Nick.
It is, and you know what? There's more than one narrative as well. Like so many of these big title fights, you've obviously got the story of the fact that, you know, these are former teammates, former sparring partners, you know, gym buddies, guys that, you know, wouldn't necessarily just train together, but maybe grab a coffee after training or chat about their families, how's your holidays going, all that kind of stuff. And this is nothing new that we've seen in the UFC, of course. There's a rich history of teammate rivalries, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit later. But what it does is it always throws in that crazy dynamic because there's always something in the back of everyone's mind, including the fighters of, do you remember that day in training when I did this and it really worked? Or do you remember that day in training when he gassed at this point in the fight? Or whatever it may be. They'll both have so many game plans coming in which is what makes it so fascinating. And then obviously throw into the mix that Gilbert Burns is pretty much new to the welterweight division. He moved up from lightweight just because of the COVID lockdown, really, just because opportunity knocked. And he absolutely hit the ground running this time last year. And, the first 6 months of last year, he was absolutely outstanding. For me personally, I would love to have seen Gilbert Burns. Obviously, situation's got a problem. I think Gilbert Burns then taking on Kamaru Usman with all that momentum going into the fight, I think it might have been swung it in favour of the challenger. I think the extra time has probably allowed Kamaru Usman to work more with his new training team. Again, something else we're going to have to talk about at some stage. And I just think that run of results, the fact that Gilbert Burns' tail just come down slightly because of the delay, I think that could play into the champion's hands. But again, so many narratives, so many ways this can play out. It's truly a 50-50.
It is. It's going to be an absolute cracker. I've managed to speak to both of those guys this week. They're both top personalities as well. You can catch that on the BT Sport YouTube channel. So make sure you go and check out the interviews with Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. And just touching upon the interview that I did with Kamaru Usman, one of the interesting things that you just flagged up as well is that he was already thinking about switching gyms. He was already thinking of moving away from Florida and looking elsewhere. He's obviously gone to Denver, Colorado now, training with Trevor Whitman, training with the likes of Justin Gaethje is his new sparring partner. And obviously this meeting of his training man has kind of forced that issue along a bit. That for me kind of tells me that as a champion, he's always looking to freshen things up. He's always looking to improve. He's always looking to push it to the next level, because it's quite easy once you've got gold wrapped around your waist, Nick, just to rest on your laurels and just think, well, I've always done the same thing. It ain't broke. I'm not going to fix it. But he's looking to push on.
Especially for a guy, as you say, with a belt around his waist, there's nothing going wrong inside the octagon. He's lost one fight in 18 starts. I think that was his second pro fight anyway. Kamaru Usman, take away Khabib for a moment, and hopefully Dana's not watching this because he might break down into tears, but Khabib's gone now. Khabib's retired. Let's play that game. Let's play that card. Khabib's gone. Look at the champions out there at the moment. Look at the guys and how they're defending their belts. Kamaru Usman could be the most dominant champion, certainly left in the men's divisions. He just needs to keep those fights going and keep that run going. He's 3 or 4 more wins away from greatness, but he's already overtaken stats that GSP put on the table and everything else. So for me, Kamaru Usman looks like a superstar. He's got the record of a superstar. He's got the fighting ability of a superstar. He just has a habit sometimes of boring his way through fights. And he was outstanding against Colby Covington. Still one of the best welterweight fights of all time. He was safety first against Jorge Masvidal last time out. I understand it. Masvidal coming at late notice. You can understand why the champion's priority was keeping hold of the belt. This is different, though. Kamaru Usman can't play safe against Gilbert Burns. He knows him too well. And Gilbert Burns' strengths are in certain areas where Kamaru Usman likes to get work done. That's what makes this one so fascinating. It can't be a bad fight. It's going to be insane.
It is interesting that you bring that up, because for me, I look at the matchup between these two guys, and I think it all comes down to something, again, that Kamaru said in the interview, which is available on the YouTube channel, that it's how he approaches the fight. If his ego gets the better of him a little bit and he wants to stand with Gilbert, he wants to be all macho and shows that he's the real man, then I think that will leave open doors for Gilbert maybe to take advantage and, as you just said, give us a fight that we saw very similar, not last December, but the December before, when he fought Colby Covington. But if Kamaru comes here, if Kamaru comes here and I think takes the approach of wanting to just shut this game out and get the victory, I don't think there's anybody better in the whole of the UFC of coming up with a fight-specific game plan and following it out to the T. And we might get that for 25 minutes over the weekend.
Yeah, we may well do. But listen, I think as well, don't forget, he is with a new coach now with Trevor Whitman, who's a phenomenal coach, a real rich history in the sport, work with some of the best fighters, no one more so than Justin Gaethje. And let's be honest, no one's ever watched the Justin Gaethje fight and come away and said, well, that was a bit safety first. It's not the way he fights. And hopefully a little bit of that's rubbed off on Kamaru Usman. And also, Usman took a little bit of stick, from myself included, but other members of the MMA media, post the Masvidal performance, saying, yeah, it was, holding him up against the fence too much, all that foot stomping, missed opportunity. It was his opportunity to show the world how big and how dominant a champion he actually is. regardless of whether he brushed that off or not, those headlines would have concerned him and would have concerned his management team, and they'll have gone away and gone, you know what, we're going to show the world next time out. And also, we come back to the teammate thing again, don't we? You know, there's no way he wants to edge out his teammates. There's a lot of pride at stake here. There's a lot of questions being asked about what went on behind closed doors in Henry Hoof's gym when these guys were working together. You know, what were they like then? Who got the upper hand then? Is that why Gilbert Burns moved up? Because he used to, you know, ragdoll Kamaru all over the place and tap him out 5 times every session in training. Is that why he's moved up? These questions are all coming around. So Kamaru Usman's got to silence everybody, especially Gilbert Burns. And the only way he does that is with a big, dominant performance.
There's a lot of records on the line for these guys at the weekend. A win for either of them will see them go outright and maybe go down when it comes to the word legacy. If we're looking at Kamaru Usman, a victory here gives him 13 straight victories in the welterweight division, undefeated, of course, in the UFC since he came over here. And that would then put him outright in the welterweight division, overtaking GSP. He's currently tied with GSP on 12 straight victories. That's an unbelievable accolade to hold.
It's incredible, you know, and again, it just shows you how much dominance he's got. The crazy thing about it, though, and let's be honest here, why isn't he a bigger star then? Why isn't Kamaru Usman with those kind of stats? Why isn't he already a global superstar? Because again, I come back to it, he looks like one, he dresses like one, he's got the belt of a superstar, but he just hasn't delivered those kind of big breakthrough viral moment performances that superstars need. You know, he doesn't have to rock the mic. Not everybody rocks the mic. And, you know, sometimes trash talking can go against you. Khabib's a global superstar, never trash talked anybody. So I don't think that's part of it. I think what Kamaru Usman is missing at the moment is turning big dominant performances into sensational viral moment finishes. We need to see more of that. Like Colby Covington, that was the perfect performance. Toe-to-toe, sensational fight, one of the fights of the year, and get to the finish as well. That was remarkable. But it was a big step backwards again against Masvidal. So for me, it's all on Kamaru. It's there for him for the taking if he wants to take it. He's the one that's got to maybe take a little bit of a chance in there to get the finish, to become a bigger star, the star that he probably deserves to be.
It's a fully interactive show, this. You're more than welcome to come and join us. Use Twitter, use Instagram. All the information's on screen at the moment. Just ping away and we'll hopefully pick up some of your questions as we're going out throughout the show. We are scheduled to be here for the next couple of hours, but you never know. They might weigh in within the first half an hour and get the job done. We're a couple of moments away from seeing the athletes hit the scales and weigh in for UFC 258. Just a quick one on Gilbert Burns before we get on with the weigh-ins. Quite an interesting stat for him to achieve this weekend, to complete the jigsaw, I suppose. Every single male weight division has had a Brazilian world champion, bar one, that one being welterweight. If he wins this weekend, he completes that legacy. A wonderful opportunity for him.
Nice, you know, and the great thing is, I just checked my social media before we came live, and he's already posted saying, here I am, I'm on weight, I'm on my way over to get weighed in. So that's a confident guy. That's a guy that's letting the world know nice and early. I'm bang on championship weight. I'm ready to rock, and I'm ready to claim my legacy. I'm ready to claim my bit of glory. And that's all about confidence. That's all about him owning the situation, being in the right. You know, it would surprise me if he's not first on the scales. It will also surprise me, though, if Kamaru Usman's not jostling with him backstage to be first on the scales as well, because that's just the type of guy and the type of athlete he is as well. So I can't wait to see both these guys. I can't wait to see the kind of condition they're in, but also I can't wait to see the white of their eyes to know that, oh, it's game time tomorrow. This is going to be a crazy fight.
Obviously, we want your questions and thoughts on UFC 258 on this welterweight championship fight between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. So do ping them in via social media. You can also talk to us about the Khabib situation. Nick's got a wonderful analogy about Dana taking this as a bad breakup. That's coming a little bit later on in the show. And we're also going to be talking about the Leon Edwards-Hamzat Chimaev fallout. For those that have only just joined us and maybe are unaware, that fight is now off. March the 13th. It's been booked now 3 times. It's fallen off. It seems to be the new Khabib Tony, doesn't it? What next for Leon Edwards? Your thoughts on that coming up a little bit later on, and also we'll give our thoughts on it as well. But as you can see, it looks like they're starting to get ready at the Apex in Las Vegas.
First fighter to
You
the
can hear a
scale
little bit in the background there of
UFC
John Anik.
women's flyweight division, Jillian the Savage Robertson.
Here we go, Gillian Robertson first up. We were kind of insinuating that maybe some of the champions will be on there, but this is the first fight of the night, early prelims. Gillian Robertson taking on Miranda Maverick. Wrestlers versus strikers here, Nick.
Yeah. Big fan of Gillian Robertson. She's good friends with Molly McCann after they've shared some mat time, of course. I know Molly was out with her at the PI doing a little bit of rolling last week.
$125.5, the official weight for Gillian Robertson.
Got myself a new little piece of equipment here just to keep tabs on everybody that's weighed in. Gillian Robertson's just gone green. She's nailed it. Just a little bit of a geeky thing there for everybody back
scale,
on.
Competing at a catch weight of 140 pounds here tomorrow night, Andre Mr. Highlight Ewell.
Very interesting this, because this fight's only been put together at 7 days notice. Andre Ewell was due to fight last weekend. He ended up getting COVID. He got off that bill, and then they've thrown a couple of opponents together. This one fell out, that one fell out, then it all came together, and he's fighting Chris Gutierrez now, and obviously this is now a catch weight of 140 pounds.
He's a good kid, loads of ability. His only losses have been against Marlon Vera and Nathaniel Wood, so, certainly no shame in those defeats.
The official weight, 138.5 pounds for Andre Ewell.
Not surprised. He's already obviously well in camp. He was preparing for Stairman, wasn't he, at the end of the day? It's going to be interesting to see how that matchup plays out, because Stairman's very wrestle heavy. Gutierrez very strike heavy. Listen, at the end of the day, he wants to work. He wants to get a few quid. And if you want to progress in this game, you kind of have to do that, don't you? You've got to take fights on last minute notice.
We welcome Mallory Martin.
Mallory Martin, who's taking on Polyana Viana. Again, a strong wrestler base for Mallory Martin.
$115.5, the official weight for Mallory Martin.
Flying through here, no sign of any of the champs. It's always
interesting. There must have been it must have been a big cue backstage for the fact that Gilbert Burns isn't on early, bearing in mind that he's been tweeting about the fact that he's heading over early.
He is the 13th ranked welterweight in the world. Bilal, remember the name, Muhammad.
Bilal Muhammad taking on Diego Lima, a welterweight clash. And if you look at the stats of this fight, Diego Lima's got size and reach on Bilal Muhammad, but I would go as far as to say that's probably all he's got. Bilal, a very well-rounded mixed martial artist.
He's on a great run as well. I think he's lost one of his last 8 fights.
169.5, the official weight for Bilal Muhammad.
Jeez, well under.
Yeah.
Coming at 169.5. Extra championship weight. Just give you an extra half a pound there, Bilal.
Listen, you never know. Listen, in this era, anything could happen with that main event. The best thing to do is make championship weight, because you just don't know.
One half of the first fight of the night in the UFC women's flyweight division, Miranda Fear the Maverick.
There you go. Gillian Robertson weighed in a moment or two ago. This is her opponent, Miranda Maverick.
$125.5, the official weight for Miranda Maverick.
Easy work. She's a good girl. She fought on Invicta for a long time, and then she got a call up to Fight Island, I think, in the summer. One with the doctor stopped the fight, if you remember, in the first round.
Around whom this fight card was built, the reigning, defending, undisputed UFC welterweight champion, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman.
There we go. This is the reason why we're here, the welterweight championship. Top of the bill, main event for UFC 258. The champ is in the house. He spoke extremely well this week in the interview. He seemed relaxed. He seemed calm. I've seen lots of stuff, whether it be via the embedded channels or what have you. He seems in a really good place. And it's a good sign as well that within the first 5 minutes of the allotted time to weigh in, the champion is ready to do his business.
He's always in shape, though, isn't he? You know, he's a next level athlete. He's brought it over from his wrestling days. A consummate professional. That's the way to describe Kamaru Usman. And utterly dominant so far in his UFC career.
I hope these athletes are getting weighed in by this mask company.
The Bain company, yeah.
Yeah. Protect the fighter, I think they're called. There you go. We'll have to apply for some, Nick.
Stand still.
Take that mask off. Looks like there's a bit of problem here.
This doesn't look
With
good.
the balance.
He's missed weight.
170 and a half.
Take the mask off.
Take
the mask off. 170
Take the
and a
mask
half.
off, exactly. Listen, I understand that. I understand. This is a little bit embarrassing for Kamaru Usman. I understand that the mask situation is part of a sponsorship deal of which he'll be wanting to get paid. But watch this now. He'll hit 170 without the mask. Making us wait for it.
100
There you go.
170
pounds, the official weight for the champion, Kamaru Usman.
Listen,
Go. Let's see them pearly whites.
There you go. When you turn up 6 minutes in, you know full well that he's confident that he's hitting the scales. Obviously, he's got all these obligations with his sponsors and various other things to do. Sometimes it could. I mean, we've seen people do it with sunglasses, headphones. We've seen them do it with all sorts of stuff in the past, haven't
set to make his UFC debut here tomorrow night, the Fresh Prince, Phil Rowe.
Great nickname. Outstanding
Wicked.
nickname. Anybody that's walking to the octagon nicknaming himself the Fresh Prince is all right in my book. And as you just heard there from John Anik, it is a UFC debut for Phil Rowe.
Yes.
Big boy, 6 foot
Full
3,
shades.
lad, 6'3".
He's got his shades on, as the Fresh Prince should do. He's waited 18 months for this debut. Good kid. Very good.
I was doing a look. Let's see what he weighs in at. 6'3" welterweight, 80.5-inch reach. This lad. No.
Take off your shades and your socks.
Jeez,
How heavy are these UFC
lot?
socks?
I don't know, man. What is going on with these people? Just get down to your scruds and weigh in. What's the problem with you? Next thing you know, he'll be having a shave as well in a minute.
He's lost the sunglasses deal anyway.
Yeah. Well, this is squeaky bum time for Phil Rowe on UFC debut. $171 even
for Phil Rowe.
For those not too, he's got his shades back on now. For those not afraid, he doesn't have to hit championship weight because it's a non-championship fight. Of course, he's taking on Gabe Green. I think that Phil Rowe, as Nick said, he's had 18 months waiting for this UFC debut. He's a bit of a whiz on the mats, this lad, and I'm sure that he's chomping at the bit to get the job done. Who knows? Maybe he can walk to the octagon with his shades on tomorrow just to secure that sponsorship money. Who knows, Nick?
All right, moving on now to the UFC Women's Strawweight division as we welcome Poliana Viana.
Here we go. Just in case you are just joining us, Poliana Viana's opponent, Mallory Martin, weighed in short time ago. She's on the money. I've no doubt Poliana will be as well. And in the championship fight, we've already had Kamaru Usman come through, and he was on the money after a little bit of a debate with a mask, but he got there in the end.
£116, the official weight for Poliana Viana.
Yeah,
she lost between her and Mallory Martin.
Yeah, Viana lost a won a UFC debut, but lost 3 on the skid. But she won her last fight against Emily Whitmire to get herself back on track. So loads of ability, a good grappler.
Good good to see that she didn't have them heavy socks on as well, mate.
Right, moving on now to the
That was the
middleweight
key.
division. This man charged with kicking off the pay-per-view main card at UFC 258 as we welcome back the Cuban Missile Crisis, Julian Marquez.
Doesn't get better than that nickname, does it? The Cuban Missile Crisis, and he's taking on, what is it? Is it Coconut Smasher or whatever Maki Pizzolo's nickname is?
Yeah, that's right.
Julian Marquez is a middleweight clash. It's interesting this because Julian Marquez, I don't think he's fought for something like 30 odd months or something. He's been out for such a long period of time. An incredibly talented lad, but we're just yet to see him. So here we go. He gets his opportunity now against Maki Pizzolo this weekend.
185 on the nose, the official weight for Julian Marquez.
Oh, he's got his PS4 game promo to do there as well. Look at it. They're all cashing in here. Cashing in on the scales. But we haven't, as you say, Marquez, 31 months since his last UFC fight, had a terrible shoulder injury, which looked like at one stage it was going to end his career. So guys like this are always dangerous when they come back because it's like getting a new breath of life, isn't it? Suddenly your career's been handed back to you. What can you do? He's got a win over, incidentally, he's got a win over Darren Stewart from back when he was active. Unlike his opponent who actually lost against Darren Stewart last year.
Macy the Future Barber.
Now then, this is a cracking fight. Co-main event, Macy Barber taking on Alexa Grasso, right? Now, pre her fight with Roxanne Modafferi, everybody maybe had a few questions over Macy Barber. Where's she at? What's she all about? Is she just about, you know, being the social, not social media star, but you get what I'm saying. She showed real grit, real determination with a busted up knee, stayed in the fight. Yes, she lost, but she proved a lot of doubters wrong that night, Nick.
She did, you know, and we spent some time with her and a coach, Duke Rufus, around that fight in the build-up.
126 pounds for Macy Barber.
No issues there. We spent some time with her and a coach, Duke Rufus, and Duke Rufus said this is a guy that's trained, you know, the Pettis brothers, pretty much everybody, Tyron Woodley. There's been loads through the door at Rufus Sports, superstars. And he said she's one of the best girls, the best athletes he's ever had on the mats. That's what he said about Macy Barber. So that loss against Roxanne Modafferi, that was a big setback for them and their aspirations. But, you know, with their growth, sometimes a loss, it can be the best thing, and it'll put her feet back on the ground. And this is a big opportunity, co-main event on a pay-per-view, sensational opportunity for her.
This is her opponent, Alexa Grasso.
$125.5, the official weight for Alexa Grasso.
I'm fascinated by this fight, Nick. Really am, because Macy, we know that she's aggressive. We know that she's a good grappler. We know that she likes to basically pick you up, dump you on your backside, get good top control, and give you a good hiding. Alexa Grasso on the feet is absolutely mustard. Now, I would favour going with Alexa, maybe lighting Macy up a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see how Macy comes out again.
There's a blueprint to beat Macy now, isn't there? So I think Alexa Grasso will be trying to follow in the footsteps of Roxanne Modafferi. But if Macy Barber's the star we think she's going to be, then I'm expecting a big performance from her in this big co-main event slot.
Now, this guy's story is unbelievable. Ian Heinisch.
Bonkers.
It's his seventh, on Sunday, it'll be 7 years since he came out of incarceration. He's served 2 prison sentences for drug trafficking, this lad. It's turned his life around, that second sentence where he got stuck into mixed martial arts. And now look at him, he's fighting
185.5
Kelvin Gastelum
for Ian Heinisch
on a UFC pay-per-view in a middleweight contest. And he's looked really good up to this point as well.
He deserves it. He deserves this opportunity against, you know, Kelvin, who may be on the worst skid of his career, really. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's got to prove himself in the middleweight division. Heinisch is trying to build his own legacy, and this is a guy that he totally deserves to be there. It's going to be interesting with Heinisch, though. He usually prepares out in Thailand. He's based in Thailand, usually. And obviously, with the restrictions, no doubt he's done the bulk of his camp in the US. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects him in any way at all.
Anthony Hernandez is just getting ready. These guys are at the top of the prelims just before we get into the main card for UFC 258. Don't forget the prelims get underway from 1 a.m. on BT Sport. Main card from 3.
Former LFA champ, Anthony Hernandez, which was a feeder league for the UFC in the US. Good league.
186, the official weight for Anthony Hernandez.
Nice.
He's got a tough He's got a tough one this week. Yeah, nice ink. He's got a tough one this weekend, though, hasn't he, in Rodolfo Vieira? I mean, that guy doesn't get better than that when it comes to jiu-jitsu wizards.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep your back off the mat and just try and light them up on the feet. And do not let your back touch that fence, and do not get taken down, and you'll be fine.
Coconut Bombs Patolo.
There you go. I did Mackie a little bit of a disservice with his nickname earlier on. It's Coconut Bombs. Coconut Bombs. There you go. He's taking on the Cuban Missile Crisis or whatever he's called, Julian Marquez. This could go down as the greatest nickname fight of all time between these two. But Mackie Patolo, these two kick off the main card at UFC 258 on BT Sport from 3 a.m.
$185 on the nose, the official weight for Maki Patolo.
Bang on it. Bang on it. To be honest, I think Maki Patolo is better at welterweight than he is at middleweight. I think as a welterweight, you know, he didn't give away so many natural advantages. But listen, it's main card. It's a big opportunity for him. And, you know, at the end of the day, Hawaiian fighters are on a bit of a surge right now. And take inspiration from your boy, innit? Take inspiration from Max Holloway and do the business.
All right, next up, we
start fast, especially when your man's been out of the octagon for such a long period of time.
Gabe Green.
Gabe Green's taking on Phil Rowe. We saw Phil Rowe weigh in earlier on. He had the heavy socks on, didn't he? He had the shades on. He managed to hit 171. Gabe Green, is he going with one of the big? No, he's gone with the little mask. He's not gone with the big mask. This should be all right here, Gabe.
$169.5, the official weight for
Gabe
Green.
Very heavy hitter, Gabe Green. Very heavy hitter. So I would expect that he's going to be chucking some bombs.
Well, gifted Gabe had never been the distance prior to his UFC debut, and then he goes the distance and loses on points. So the game plan is easy for gifted Gabe. Do not leave it in the hands of the judges. Go out swinging. And I think that's what he'll probably do, especially against a guy like his opponent, who's obviously making his debut.
Here's Diego Lima. We saw Bilal Mohammed weigh in a little earlier on. Bilal was on the money. Diego's got size advantage. He's got reach advantage. He's got to use those advantages in this fight against Bilal.
171, the official weight for Diego Lima.
Yeah, former tough finalist, Diego. Obviously, his brother's a successful MMA fighter as well on a different promotion. Yeah. On a 3-fight win and running the UFC right now, you know, his tail's up. He's just got to try and move up those rankings, and he gets a big opportunity against Bilal, who is ranked.
Division. This man is the former interim middleweight title challenger, 9th in the world, Kelvin Gastelum.
Now, bit of a crossroads moment for Kelvin Gastelum. You mentioned a moment or two ago, he's on a bit of a skid, and I think coming off the back of the Hermansson defeat, it was a weird defeat that. It was like he kind of gave it up in a way, that defeat. It's going to be interesting to see how he approaches this one with Ian Heinisch.
Incredible, even at middleweight, you know, so effective at welterweight, but had to force to move up. But, you know, this guy's beat Jacare, he's beat Bisping, he's beat Vita Belfort. You know, he's no joke, Kelvin Gastelum. He's just having a bad time right now. This 0-for-3 skid is not good.
186, the official weight for Kelvin Gastelum.
In a way, Ian Heinisch is kind of the perfect opponent because they're both tough guys. They both like to throw. They've both got decent wrestling bases, haven't they? It should be a great fight, this man, between Kelvin and Ian.
It's a sleeper, absolutely. It's, you know, it's probably the one that you'd look on the main card. I like the Bobby Green Jim Miller fight as well, but this is the one on the main card I think could be flames.
Brian Boom Kelleher.
Here we go.
Now, talking about one of the fights of the night, I'm telling you now, Brian Kelleher's fight with Ricky Simon on the early prelims is my tip to be crazy 15-minute bonkers fight of the night.
Do you think it goes the distance?
However long it goes, it's going to be fun. Put it that way.
Good man. I like it.
145.5 pounds, the official weight for Brian Kelleher.
There you go, Brian Boom Kelleher.
Yes.
He's also got a show-stopping guillotine, that fella, as well. So keep an eye out for him. They both have got very heavy hands. They both like to throw down, but he's got a wicked guillotine on him, Brian. So any changes of levels from Ricky, watch your head, watch your neck, sunshine.
It matters the box of throats. They're just going to go at it. Let's be honest. Game plan's out the window. They're just going to go at it, those two.
Interesting as well, Ricky Simon, as you just mentioned. I think that's his second appearance now in 4 weeks. We're seeing this quite a lot, aren't we, with fighters taking full advantage of these COVID times. You know, certain things might not materialise for somebody. You've got to stick your hand up. You've got to stay ready. Gilbert Burns is the prime example of it. He's in a world title fight at the weekend, and on Saturday night, and he's the guy that stuck his hand up at the start of last year, took some chances, took some advantage, and look at him now.
I think even Ricky Simon out on Fight Island when he got that submission win, I think he said in his post-fight interview, listen, I'll stay, I'll fight again, I'm ready to go. And that's the mentality to have, you know, because it does open doors, especially during the pandemic when fights are falling off left, right and centre. You know, there's another one on the main card as well with Bobby Green and Jim Miller. You know, Jim Miller may be as old as me, but he's been super active last year. I think he had 3 fights in 2020. Bobby Green had 4 fights in 2020. The work's there. If you stay in shape, the work is there and the phone will ring with the UFC.
If you're just joining us on our live show here for the UFC 258 weigh-ins, welcome. Great to have you along. A little bit of an update for you. Kamaru Usman did weigh in earlier on. He hit weight eventually. I think part of his sponsorship deal was to wear a particular mask or a particular item of clothing, which took him over when he originally weighed in. But once he dropped all those sponsorship items, he hit the scale at 170 pounds even. So the champion's weighed in. He's done. Interesting that we haven't seen Gilbert Burns yet, because as Nick pointed out right at the start of the show, he did hit social media. He says, listen, guys, I'm on championship weight. I'm on my way to the Apex to weigh in. We haven't seen him yet, and we're 21 minutes into the official weigh-ins. The co-main event came through all good. We're still waiting on the main card for Bobby Green and Jim Miller, but the rest of the main card is absolutely done and dusted. A couple of other fighters as well to wait upon. I'm seeing quite a lot of interaction on social media, so thank you very much for that. Do keep them coming in, and we will try now to obviously get some narratives going throughout the course of the show. So if you want to participate, you can do. Hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram at the BT Sport UFC official pages, and use those hashtags as well for the weigh-in show. A lot of people talking about Kamaru Usman, and I kind of saw this in the comments of the interview that I did with him earlier on this week. I find him a very charming guy. I think he's got a great personality. He's very cool, he's very calm, he's very collected with his thoughts when you ask him questions. But he does seem to get a bit of hair. And I don't know where that comes from, because at the end of the day, he is doing his job, and his job is to go and get wins. And he's doing it on a regular basis. Where do you think that hair comes from?
I've got no idea in terms of him as a personality and a character, because as you say, he couldn't be a nicer fella. And he's super stylish, and he ticks every box to be a superstar. He unlocks 2 continents as well. Not only the US, but of course, Nigeria, that African continent, himself and Israel Adesanya seem like they're on the precipice to unlocking a huge new fan base by taking the UFC out of that part of the world for the first time, once we return to some kind of normality. So he's got all the hallmarks needed to be a superstar. I don't know whether it is because he's got 2 finishes in his last 11 fights. That's all it can be. Now, this is something, of course, that was angled towards George St. Pierre during his own welterweight run as well, that GSP was being too safe in fights, wasn't going for finishes. But by then, GSP had already established his legacy and his dominance in a real strong welterweight era. I think the fact that, he took the belt off Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley wasn't a super popular champion either, and was criticised for the same things. I just think it's a matter of circumstance at the moment. I think if Kamaru Usman can start pulling the trigger and start getting these kind of finishes, I think the love will grow for him exponentially. And listen, a big win here this weekend. And yes, we're starting to debate now, is he the greatest welterweight of all time? He's really starting to come into the conversation. But to stand out, to cross over, to become a mainstream star, he's got to start pulling the trigger for me.
It's going to be interesting to see if he gets that victory this weekend, because statistically he will then have the most consecutive victories in the welterweight division of all time in the UFC. He goes to 13, above George St. Pierre, who was on 12, and only 3 then behind Anderson Silva. And I know that it's in the back of his mind. He says he's taking 1 fight at a time, and that's the right thing to be doing, no question about that. But by the end of the year, this time next year, if he is obviously successful, we could be talking about him challenging that sensational record that Anderson Silva set way back when. Keep your questions coming in to the Twitter feed and to the Instagram feed here at BT Sport. We're still waiting for a few fighters to weigh in, including Gilbert Burns. And that kind of leads us on nicely to the next point that we've been making throughout the course of the week, that if Gilbert Burns does get his hand raised in this championship fight, he becomes the first Brazilian welterweight world champion. Every other male division has had a Brazilian champion, bar welterweight. They've had 4 attempts, all 4 being defeated. The last one, of course, being Demian Maia. There's been some sensational fighters, don't get me wrong, that have competed from Brazil at welterweight. But what an unbelievable piece for your legacy, I suppose, being the final piece in that jigsaw, Nick, if Gilbert Burns can get the job done this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much at the front of his mind that will be, but it'll certainly, in the aftermath, if he does raise the belt, it'll certainly become a huge narrative for him and a huge opportunity for the UFC to get him back over to Brazil and start building him as a little bit of a poster boy out in Brazil, as one of the faces of the UFC brand down there in South America. So it's a massive, as you say, a legacy-defining moment for him. Incredible statistic to have. But he's got it all to do, hasn't he? Let's be honest. We've just been waxing lyrical about Kamaru Usman being so utterly dominant. And I think Gilbert Burns is going to... Listen, he looks sensational against Demian Maia, one of the best knockouts of the year. He absolutely destroyed Tyron Woodley, completely and utterly dominant that night. I'll be honest, I think he's going to have to raise the bar again to get a win over Kamaru Usman, and that's easier said than done. And that's why I'm so excited for this fight, because we need to see Gilbert Burns go up another level, and we need to see Kamaru Usman come out of his shell a little bit and do something quite special to stop this guy's run.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because I'm absolutely fascinated. These two know each other inside and out. They know each other's strengths. They know each other's weaknesses. I think, obviously, as the challenger, the onus is on Gilbert Burns to do something in order to force Kamaru Usman to do something else. Kamaru Usman is very used to implementing his game plans, fight-specific game plans, and getting the job done. He will know now in the back of his head how he goes about beating Gilbert Burns. And I'm sure he had that same thought when he was going into the fight with Colby Covington. Colby Covington then refused to wrestle with him, and we ended up getting a kickboxing match. Do you think we'll get something like that? Do you think we'll get a kickboxing match? Because if we do, surely then opportunities will arise for Gilbert Burns.
I hope so, because the Kamaru Usman Colby Covington fight was absolutely brilliant. So obviously, we always hope that we're going to get a fight of the year contender, and this does have all the hallmarks of a potential fight of the year contender. Do you want to apply your grappling to the point where you're getting your guy to the ground a lot when the guy is an elite level black belt in jiu-jitsu? Or do you want to stay standing where the guy may actually have the edge on you in terms of kickboxing terms? Listen, I think Kamaru Usman punches a lot harder than Gilbert Burns. He's obviously got a decent reach advantage over Gilbert Burns as well. I think there's no fear of standing and banging with Gilbert Burns. But what Kamaru does is he throws his punches in bunches. He doesn't throw one big shot knockout, and that allows Gilbert Burns to maybe slip one or two, either go for a double leg himself, which would be really interesting, or, as I say, I think he's a better kickboxer, really get that kicking game going. And one opportunity against Kamaru Usman for me are the leg kicks. He's a wrestler, man. He's a career wrestler.
Right, next fighter
I'll tell you a secret about career wrestlers. They've all got terrible knees. Gilbert Burns should kick the knees from under him, break his base down, and then push on from there. But that's just me. Listen, I love a bit of dirty boxing. That's just me.
It's going to be interesting to see what Kamaru Usman does with that. Does he go to catch them? Does he check them? What does he do with them? Anyway, we'll find out obviously on Saturday night on BT Sport. This is the other half of the catchweight contest, which has been made on 7 days' notice. This is Chris Gutierrez. Catchweight of 140 pounds, this.
Because of Gutierrez, he's stuck between weights, this guy. He really is stuck between two weight divisions.
140 pounds, the official weight for El Guapo,
there
Chris Gutierrez.
Well done to him. Chris Gutierrez makes that fight. Andre Ewell will be his opponent, and those two will throw down. Like I said, 7 days' notice, those two guys have got it. Have managed to get this fight on. Credit to them. Credit to the UFC for giving us this fight. Should be an absolute cracker.
Should be a brilliant. And Gutierrez is on a 4-fight win and run as well right now. So no wonder he took the fight at late notice. Why not? Jump straight in there. Let's go. Especially when he can negotiate an extra £5, which for me, as I say, plays into his own hands because he really struggles to get down to 135.
Now, whilst we've got a little bit of a break in people weighing in, we've had half an hour. We are scheduled for another 90 minutes on this. That's how long they've got to weigh in. We still haven't heard from Gilbert Burns as of yet. Everybody else, I say everybody else, there's a couple on the main card that we're still missing, but Kamaru Usman weighed in on the money. We're just waiting for Gilbert Burns to obviously complete the welterweight championship fight. Might be a little bit of action now as the just checking the validity of the scales. I just don't want to start a conversation and then have to break off. Looks like I might have to. Let's get stuck into another conversation because this weekend, of course, Nick, is Valentine's weekend. Valentine's weekend this weekend. And I've seen your analogy of this. And one man that seems to be taking a breakup extremely badly is, of course, the UFC president, Dana White. He can't let Khabib go. He can't let him go anywhere. He keeps telling everybody that Khabib's not gone. He's still the champ. We're going to have another little meet up in Las Vegas. And I'm going to try and persuade him one more time in order to come back in and fight and defend that belt in the lightweight division. You're not convinced, aren't you? You're basically saying, listen, Khabib said no. Just let it go, man. Let it go. Walk away.
Listen, when I was in my 20s and out there punching my own weight, I used to live by the motto, treat them mean, keep them keen. And by that, I don't mean treat them mean in any bad way. What I mean is do not chase after, your other half or the girls or boys or whatever it may be. Don't chase after them. Let them come to you. Don't bombard them with text messages and phone calls and you remember yourself. Sometimes you catch your mates and they'd be texting a girl on the sly and doing it, and you'd be like, mate, she broke up with you. She broke up with you a year ago. Let it go. And that's what Dana needs right now. He needs someone to take his phone away from him. He needs someone to take him down to the club or whatever. Meet some new faces. Dana. You've got a 700 fighter roster. There's plenty of other fish in the sea to get going. And tell you, this is my actual advice directly to Dana as well, if he is watching. Take the belt off Khabib, give it to somebody else, and parade that person round town. Get him on whether it's Dustin Poirier or whatever it may be. Get him on your arm. Take him round Vegas, all your favourite haunts. Get him on a few chat shows and everything else. And you wait and see. Mark my words, Khabib will come running. He will come running, and that's how we get Khabib back inside the octagon. You can't keep arranging meetings and dinners. Khabib said his piece, man. If he doesn't want to fight, fine. That's cool. Crack on. Khabib's trying to turn pro football from what I've seen. Hanging around with Virgil van Dijk and
basketball as well. Yeah,
there you go. It's crazy. Let Khabib crack on, and Dana needs to go. Listen, crown another champ. That's how we get Khabib back in the octagon.
I think every single fight fan watching this and laughing along at your analogy of this being a bad Valentine's breakup, we all want to see Khabib fight. He was unbelievable against Justin Gaethje. He's absolutely mustard. He's one of our favourites. There's no doubt about that. But from spending a little bit of time around him, around these fight weeks, you kind of get the vibe that he is a man of his word. And once he's made a promise to family members, that's where he's going to be at. So for the short period of time,
for his first UFC championship
I don't think
opportunity here tomorrow night, the number one ranked UFC welterweight contender, Gilbert Burns.
We'll come back on the Khabib chat in a minute. This is more pressing. Championship fight. Kamaru Usman weighed in earlier on.
170 pounds,
yes.
The official weight for Gilbert Burns.
No messing for Durinho. And I'm
Same
sure
sponsor.
People that, yeah. I'm sure there's loads of people that are fully aware of what Durinho means, his nickname. It means little tough guy. And it was given to him by one of his former coaches after naming his older brother Tough Guy. He comes along to the gym and he proved that he were a little bit more handy than his brother, who in fact is a Navy SEAL in Brazil. But Gilbert comes along, and one of the gym members there named him Durinho, which means little tough guy. We're going to find out how tough this little tough guy is on Saturday night as he takes on his mate Kamaru Usman. Yeah,
it's a shame it's not knows how to put on a mask guy. He's absolutely clueless. Yeah.
It's a good job he knows how to fight, isn't it?
Look at that flag, though, right? That flag bandana. around his head, obviously it is in his mind. It's obviously something that he's thinking about, and that being the first ever Brazilian to listen, being the first guy to do anything at any level, especially when it includes your nationality, your place of birth, is always something absolutely huge, because no one can ever take that away from you. So quite poignant there that he's got the flag wrapped around his head, and he's obviously thinking about it.
Still waiting for Bobby Green and Jim Miller on the main card. Everybody else has weighed in and been on the money. Rodolfo Vieira, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whiz who takes on Anthony Hernandez, we're just waiting for him to weigh in as well. And Ricky Simon is the other that we are still waiting for. So everybody else has been through the scales, been on the money. Ricky Simon, Rodolfo Vieira, and obviously the two fighters involved in the fight between Bobby Green and Jim Miller. So 4 fighters we are still waiting for. Just quickly reverting back, my man, to our chat on Khabib. What do we do then? If Dan is absolutely adamant that Khabib is still the champion, the majority of people watching this would say, well, it's Dustin Poirier then, isn't it? That's what's got to happen. Dustin Poirier's got to get his shot, has he not?
Well, the problem is we've seen Dustin lose to Khabib quite recently. Likewise, Gaethje. Likewise, Conor. So, listen, I think the only way to solve this is if we set up a tournament. And let me just go back to my commissioner ways right now. But we've got the opportunity this year just to play it out. Everyone fights each other. There's a perfect mix there. Chandler needs to fight Gaethje next. Poirier needs to fight on and fight Charles Oliveira. Let's take Conor, because we don't want to take Conor out the equation because of what he brings. Let's take Conor and put him in with another top-level lightweight as well. Keep that mix going. What Khabib wants is, Khabib made it clear, one guy needs to stand out. One guy needs to stand out as an elite champion in a real competition, because I'm better than all these guys, and we agree with him. That's what he's got to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what Dana's holding out for as well. Here's Jim Miller on his 400th appearance in the Octagon this weekend.
155.5 pounds, the official weight for the veteran Jim Miller.
Love that. Listen.
3 fights in 2020. Nice and busy. I love it. And speaking of lightweight tournaments, Jim Miller's been around forever. He's got a submission win over Charles Oliveira. Well, they've got a submission win each over each other. But yeah, man, Jim Miller's been around forever and a day.
He's one of them fighters that you write off, and then he goes on about a 3 or a 4 fight win streak. You think, all right, Jim Miller's back in, and then he'll go on a losing streak again. And then just as you think he's gone, boom, he's straight back in the mix again. Jim Miller, man. Yep. Do not, Bobby Green, if you're watching the stream before you come down to weigh in, don't grapple with this kid. Don't get on the mats with him. He's looking for your arms. That's what Jim Miller does. Bobby Green's got to keep it nice and long. He's got to keep it on his feet for as long as possible, hasn't he?
But the good thing about that is, you're exactly right, but the good thing is, Bobby Green's got one of the best takedown defenses in this weight division. Bobby Green is impossible to take down and keep down anyway. So that's why I love this fight. For me, Bobby Green, Jim Miller's me sleeper on the main card. Ricky Simon, Brian Kelleher's me absolute sleeper on further down on the prelims as well.
Now, shall we talk Leon? Because obviously last night, the disappointing news, Leon Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev, the fight that was scheduled for March 13th. It was also scheduled for January 20th. It was also scheduled for December 12th, if I'm not mistaken, if I've got them dates right. I know it's been scheduled 3 times, and it's fallen off every single time. Leon's had COVID, Khamzat's had COVID, and the reason why the fight has fallen off this time is there's lingering side effects that Khamzat is currently experiencing from that COVID bout, and we wish him all the best in his recovery, and hopefully he gets to resume his career sometime soon. But with all that said and done, Leon Edwards, who's been out of the octagon for a hell of a long period of time, needs to get busy, needs to get active, needs to get back out there, and needs to get some work. Now, according to his social media, he wants to fight on March the 13th. That's the date that he is working towards. What fight can we realistically make, Nick? I mean, we've got the title fight between Usman and Burns this weekend, so that's out the picture. Neither of these guys are going to be fighting, fella. So what other fight out there makes sense for Leon Edwards on March the 13th?
Well, Leon himself said it in his tweet there that you can see on screen. Nate Diaz is the fight. Nate Diaz did an interview this week where he started saying, yeah, I'm back. I don't want to fight at lightweight. I want to crack on at welterweight. Then named 2 lightweights that he wants to fight at welterweight, which made no sense whatsoever. Typical Nate Diaz. But I just think this is a perfect opportunity for him. If Nate's serious about continuing his career, then Nate Diaz at welterweight, then the guy who's ranked number 3 in the world, basically the guy who deserves the next shot, because it looks like Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal, for me, would have been perfect, obviously. The whole 3-piece and a soda. There's a narrative. There's a video there that we can replay. But Masvidal, Colby Covington, from what we're hearing, they're lining up. It could even be a tough coach's job later in the summer. So that takes them out of the picture in terms of being a title contender as well. So Leon Edwards just needs a big win, and he gets the winner of Saturday night for me. So Nate Diaz has got a wonderful opportunity here to if he's serious, to jump right into the mix. Whether he takes it or not, I don't know. The problem with Leon Edwards is, how high his ranking is and all the talent he's got, he's also the guy nobody in any weight division, certainly welterweight, want to take on, because he's super high risk, low reward, because he's just not a name in the US right now. And the only way Leon changes that is by taking on big names.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So therefore, I personally would rule out the opportunity. I don't think Nate takes that fight. I think Nate's looking for other things.
Connor,
you mentioned Masvidal and Colby there, and obviously Dana's kind of insinuated that Tough 29, which kicks off in the summer, the lead coaches will be welterweight. You look around that welterweight division, where's the narrative, where's the needle? Well, it's Masvidal and Colby. So hopefully that is where they're going with that. And let's be honest, as fight fans, we all want to see Masvidal versus Colby. It'd be an absolute cracker, even though there's a narrative with either Colby or Masvidal for Leon.
UFC's middleweight division.
I'll come back to this in a minute.
Prelim live on ESPN, Rodolfo Vieira.
There you go. Now, this is the guy that we were talking about a little bit earlier on, Rodolfo Vieira. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whiz, this kid. Unbelievable on the mats, taking on Anthony Hernandez. Should be a cracking fight.
the Black Belt Hunter. Wow. If you've got a name like the Black Belt Hunter, you can roll, baby. 7 fights, 7 wins, 6 submissions. You know what he's going to do, but can you stop it?
There you go, 186.
The official weight for Rodolfo Vieira.
On the money. So we're still waiting for people that are just tuning in to the live weighing show here on BT Sport. We are waiting for Ricky Simon, who's taking on Brian Keller. And by my calculations, we're only, as well as him, we're just waiting for Bobby Green as well, who's taking on Jim Miller. Everybody else is weighed in. The title fight is on. Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns weighed in a little earlier on, and both nailed 170 pounds championship weight. So anyway, going back to the Leon Edwards chat that we were having a moment or two ago, because his fight with Hamzat Chimaev is off. And we've talked about maybe the possibility of a Nate Diaz thing, which neither of us, I think, would realistically come off, maybe because Nate Diaz is looking at other things. Jorge, Colby, both brilliant narratives for Leon, but if we're really honest as fight fans, we're probably pushing Jorge and Colby together rather than to go and fight Leon Edwards. It's a shame, but then that leaves maybe 1 or 2 names. Now, the name that I came up with earlier on was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't know if Stephen will be ready for March 13th because he's still healing up from his last fight, but it's a hell of a fight, that, man. And if you're going to look for title shots, you need guys in that top 5 to fight in order to really state your claim. And Wonderboy is that guy for Leon. For both guys, in fact.
Yeah, I think it's the fight that does make the most sense. I just don't know, as you say, how healthy Wonderboy actually is. One thing I would do if I was Leon Edwards, though, or certainly representing Leon Edwards, is with Colby and Masvidal looking favourites to be tough coaches and potentially going out of the title mix for the next 3 or 4 months or whatever it may be. Plus, they've both fought Kamaru Usman pretty recently as well. What Leon's got to do is, regardless of whoever they get for him, whether it is Wonderboy, whether it is Nate, whether it's another, Leon Edwards, Team Leon Edwards have got to insist it's a final eliminator. They've waited long enough. Even Kamaru Usman has come out previously and said it's Leon Edwards next. Obviously, Leon was supposed to be the guy. Then Tyron, the Tyron Woodley fight, and then Tyron jumped ahead of him, and then Woodley got replaced by Bate. All that kind of craziness that went on in that mix. It was Leon that getting his nose pushed out every time. Leon Edwards is the guy on the run. Leon Edwards is the guy, when you look at the people in this welterweight division below Kamaru Usman who've put the wins together, Leon Edwards is the most deserving guy who hasn't had his shot yet. So they just got to insist on that. What Leon Edwards can't do is fight any of these guys we're talking about, then come out of that fight and still have to face Khamzat Chimaev. That, for me, that doesn't work for Leon Edwards. That just works for Khamzat Chimaev. He can't tread water waiting for Khamzat, who's not even ranked in the welter or any weight division. He's got to insist to the UFC, listen, I'll do Wonderboy, I'll do Nate Diaz, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but you've got to give me the winner of Usman versus Burns. And he's in his rights to do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, I want to stress from everybody at BT Sport, we're massive fans of Khamzat Chimaev, and we wish him all the best in his recovery. And we want him, of course, to be able to resume his career. He's not sounding good at the moment. I mean, this COVID thing is not something to be messed about with. He's obviously tried to get himself back to full fitness, and it's not there at the moment. But hopefully, given a bit of time, he'll be able to do so. But the big thing for Leon Edwards is that he can't sit and wait. He can't sit and wait around. He's got to move on, and he's got to move on pretty quickly because, as I said, he's in the prime of his career. He's been on the shelf for the best part of, what is it now, 15, 16 months he's not had a fight for. He needs to get back in that octagon. And if he's hell-bent on March 13th, we're just trying to spitball a few ideas of realistic opponents that you can stick in there in order for it to make sense for Leon Edwards. And as Nick's just said there, to try and make sense for the UFC to, if he does come through it, to say, boom, there you go, there's a title contenders fight. What about Michael Chiesa? What do you think of that one?
I think it would be a huge opportunity for Michael Chiesa. You know, I think Michael Chiesa would bite your hand off for it. If I was Leon Edwards, I would much prefer to head for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He just flashed up a tweet there from Wonderboy actually suggesting he's ready.
He's
number
in.
3 versus number 5. Let's do it. If I was Leon Edwards, I would certainly pursue that, because the thing with Michael Chiesa is, you know, he only fights one way, and it's not a pretty way. You know, he closes the distance, he takes it down, he's got incredible wrestling, incredible grappling, and as good as Leon Edwards is on the ground, that's not the type of fight and not the type of opponents which allows you to throw up the kind of performance where you can really push home, ram home and go, I'm the next guy. Chiesa's a nightmare for anybody. You know, and to beat him, you've got to win ugly, because he fights ugly, with all due respect to Michael Chiesa. Whereas Wonderboy, a lot more stand-up, a lot more of a, you know, karate-style approach. There's more opportunity to get a highlight reel-type finish, which is what Leon Edwards needs, just to push it over the line, just to convince Dana and everybody in Vegas, okay, we've dodged him long enough. This guy's got to fight the champion next. That's what Leon needs.
It's also a wonderful opportunity for Stephen, though, isn't it? You know, because he's been that guy that's been there. He's been there with Tyrone. Obviously, the first fight was good. Second fight wasn't there. And it kind of, you know, he kind of got the raw end of the deal there, did Stephen. And he's kind of been, I don't know, used as a gatekeeper, if that's the right way. He's been getting fights that you would kind of look at that were being used in order to propel somebody else rather than himself. He's a wonderful talent. Wonderful, wonderful talent. I absolutely love watching Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight. And for the UFC to match him up with Leon and say, listen, the winner of this gets the winner of this weekend, I think makes an awful amount of sense, especially if they're going to do a tough season where Masvidal and Colby are going off on their little narrative together, if that's true.
Yeah, exactly right. You're exactly right. And number 3 versus number 5, when the other guys are tied up, come on, that's perfect for it, isn't it? So I'm just looking at Harry Zio's tweet here. Who will be lightweight champ at the end of the year? Go on, you go first. Who do you think?
Well, are we changing our minds from our official show that we did at the start of the year? Am I? Having seen what I've seen from Dustin Poirier against Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier is the man right now. Absolutely right now. And him using the narrative of the uncrowned champ. Yes, it is. And again, I'll go back to Nick's analogy of Dana taking the breakup with Khabib extremely bad. He's hanging on. He's clinging on. He's in the car outside the house still waiting for him to come out the garden path, isn't he? He's that type of guy at the moment. He's checking the phone every 2 minutes. Listen, Khabib will be back at some point. I'm convinced of that. He will not be back over the next 12 months. So right now, it's Dustin Poirier. But I've just got a thing for Charles Oliveira. Just got a thing for him. He's rounded, man. He's as rounded as they come. He can do it on the feet. He's brilliant on the deck. At the end of the year, I'd say Charles Oliveira. Right now, no, but at the end of the year, maybe.
There he is as well with his tweet, gold lightweight belt, Charles the Bronx. Listen,
there you go.
I agree with you. But my issue right now is that if my tournament doesn't play out the way it should do, because people are trying to throw spanners in the works, we need to see that tournament. For me, those 4 guys are the top 4 guys right now. Chandler, Gaethje, let's bring Gaethje back into the fold. Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira. Play that out however you want to play it out. And yes, let's bring Conor back into. Absolutely, of course, it's Conor, and let's put other people in the mix there as well. But one of those guys needs to fight for the belt next, or at least be. It's tough to say Dustin Poirier needs to win another fight without a belt to then go into a belt fight. Why should he rematch Conor McGregor without the belt? Because you can't put the belt on Conor versus Dustin 3. You just can't, in my liking.
Why?
Because Conor doesn't.
Why?
Because Conor doesn't deserve it. Because Conor hasn't won at lightweight in a long time.
You don't get. Listen, this game's not about what you deserve, my man. This is about what makes the most amount of business sense. You heard him. It's just business, baby. He's the former lightweight champ. They have a narrative together. You can't
put a belt on that. You can't put a belt on it. I think if you said to Dustin Poirier, you've got 2 options. Yeah. You've got Conor trilogy, straight away he's in. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's do it now while I've got the beating of him. Cool. Or you do Charles Oliveira for the belt. Now that's a conversation and that's a decision for me that Dustin Poirier would have to make. And yes, you've still got Chandler Gaethje over there. The thing is, that then allows Conor to go and get a win at lightweight and legitimize his contendership in the lightweight division, regardless of who that wins against. He gets a win back at 155. Dustin goes and fights Charles Oliveira. And listen, if he truly believes he's the best in the world, and right now it's hard to disagree with him, he gets a win over Charles Oliveira, becomes the champion. Then Conor's just got to win. There's a legit contender. Chandler Gaethje have just fought. There's a legit fight, the rematch with Gaethje, or that incredible fight with Chandler. There's so much we can do with this lightweight division over the next 12 months that I think doing Dustin versus Conor next, while it makes financial sense, doesn't make sense for the rest of the division for me. And you can't throw the belt at it either. So it means the belt stays with Khabib, sitting on the bench for another 6 months. I'm not down for it, man. Stick to the tournament formats. Come on.
Listen, there you go. There you go. That's why you're not down for it, right? You've come up. You're now this new celebrity in the UFC game as the commissioner. And you're going, I can't stand off. I can't come away from my tournament. It has to play out like that. Listen, you're 100% right. It does have to play out. The tournament is perfect. It will be wonderful for it to play out that way. But there's that age-old thing that turns people's heads. Dollars, mate. Dollars. And for Dustin Poirier, he has just been paid more money than he got for his previous 3 fights combined. He'll look at that and he'll think, you want me to dance with this guy again when I've got the beating of him? Okay, that's where I'm going. And you're right. Maybe that should be the ultimatum from the UFC. They should say, okay, that's cool, man. We will make that fight. We're all in. We're all in on the Conor trilogy, but we're going to give you another option. And the other option is UFC Gold. And it's this guy, Charles Oliveira. So it's up to you. You can choose it. We're going to support whatever you do. You go for it. You're the kingmaker, mate. And he can crack on. If he chooses Conor, what title fight did they make for Charles Oliveira?
They can't. They could potentially make an interim title fight. Chandler versus Oliveira, for something like that, or even Gaethje versus Oliveira for the interim belt. I wouldn't be against it, just because the champion's in recess or whatever he is doing. You know, whatever Dana keeps telling us he's doing. He's retired, man. Take the belt off him. But anyway, I think if Dustin wants to dance with Conor again, you can't crown a new champion away from that either. That's what I mean. If Dustin and Conor do it for the 3rd time next, then the belt for me stays vacant or stays with Khabib for at least another 3 or 4 months until that plays out. And then we get a legit contender to go in with Dustin or Conor, who it may be. Because listen, it makes financial sense to do Dustin versus Conor. Of course it does. Part 3, massive interest. If Conor wins, now it makes financial sense to do Conor Khabib too, because that's even bigger. You know, so be careful what you wish for this lightweight division, because the more you give Conor these opportunities, if he gets a win and gets the right win, it'll be Conor versus Khabib before you know it. And all these lightweights that deserve a shot, these 3, 4, the 6 of them, there's easily 6 in this mix. They will all be at least 12 months away from the title again. So if I was any of them, let Khabib stay retired, say nothing about Conor, and let's crack on with the tournament.
There he is again. Listen, I've I've got a great question here from Peter. It's come in via our Instagram. Can Adesanya become the first three-weight world champion? I'm assuming that you're thinking that he can hold three belts simultaneously across three weight categories there, middleweight, light heavyweight, and of course, heavyweight, I think you're pointing towards there, Pete. He's got a light heavyweight contest coming up with Jan Blachowicz. Now, that's his aim. We know that that's Israel Adesanya's aim. We've had conversations with him. We've had conversations with Dana. There's loads of pieces that you can put together from all those conversations. And if he can come through the fight with Jan Blachowicz, I think Israel Adesanya's first aim then is to go for John Jones at heavyweight and for the title. That's providing John Jones can obviously get himself the title. And I think we're unanimous in thinking that John Jones can become the heavyweight champion of the world this year. By the end of the year, Nick, can Israel Adesanya become the heavyweight champion of the world, as well as the light heavyweight champion, as well as the middleweight championship?
Perfect timing for my man on the scales here. Just, he's got away. I'm going to have to answer it. I'm going to have to answer it now. In all honesty, listen, I've been in a room with Israel Adesanya. He's an incredible fighter. As you know, I'm one of his biggest fans. I've been raving about this guy for many, many years. I knew he was going to be an absolute superstar when he got to the UFC. But I've been in his presence. I've sat next to him. I've interviewed him. Likewise, John Jones. And I remember John Jones when he was utterly dominant at light heavyweight. And we used to have similar conversations. This was during, the Gustafsson, the DC run and everything else. And I used to say to him, a move to heavyweight's got to come. You need it for your legacy. And he used to say, look at Cain Velasquez. Look at Junior Dos Santos. Look at the Stipe Miocic. These guys are thick that way. John Jones is tall and long, just like Israel is at middleweight. But when you turn him side on, John Jones was lean, just like Israel Adesanya's lean. Now, John Jones, of course, has been smashing the weights right now. He's absolutely blowing up. He's doing a full Rumble Johnson. And by the time he does move to the heavyweight division, hopefully this year, he's going to look like a heavyweight. He's going to be absolutely massive. And he's going to put some beef on those skinny legs that he's got. And he's going to be one of the biggest guys in the heavyweight division. The problem with Israel is he's got to blow up to get to light heavyweight. Now, I know he's fought heavyweight in the kickboxing before, but completely different when you can grapple, when you can throw a guy on the ground. If you look at how big Israel Adesanya is compared to Francis Ngannou, my goodness, you could fit two Israel Adesanyas in Francis Ngannou. That's how big Francis is. And that would be my issue with Izzy.
I've wrestled him. I know. He's a big boy.
Exactly. As talented as Israel Adesanya is, I just don't think he's got the capability to get up to 220 plus and be as physically strong as some of these beasts up there. So to answer your question, no, I don't. Unless he loses a leg and goes down to 170, then maybe.
Listen, we're only talking about genetics. Ability doesn't even come into it because Israel Adesanya's got all the ability in the world to be able to do it. If we're talking pound for pound, then the answer is probably yeah. But like you just said, genetic-wise, your body can only do so much. And if you're piling it on and you're piling on that type of size in order to get up to the likes of the heavyweights, how much does that take away from what Israel Adesanya is? That speed, you know what I mean? That accuracy, the sharpness in and around the octagon. How much does it take out of his game? Likewise for John. We don't know how much it's going to take out of John's game, when he does go up to heavyweight and he's weighing best part of 250 pounds where he's used to be competing, obviously at 200, you know what I mean? So therefore, it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he has a go. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel Adesanya has a go at trying to become the heavyweight champion of the world this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if he beats Jan, and I think that's a big if as well. I think people are underappreciating not only how good Jan Blachowicz is, but how hard he worked to become champion. And I think there's a light heavyweight division there full of killers, guys like Glover Teixeira, who are going to be mightily annoyed that Israel Adesanya jumped ahead of them in the queue for a shot at that belt. So what Israel Adesanya does next is going to be super interesting. Win, lose or draw against Jan, because he's got a murderer's row at middleweights all chomping at the bit to get at him as well. You've got this team of light heavyweights who are completely fuming that he's jumped ahead of them. And then you're talking about him potentially going straight up to heavyweight. We know why. To become the first simultaneous three-weight UFC champion, he becomes the GOAT. He defines his legacy. But it's all good and well saying that from the comforts of our living room, but actually doing it inside the octagon is a whole different ball game.
Well, just before I give you an update of the UFC 258 weigh-in, because that's what you're all tuning in for. You've just finished work and you're just joining us. Just want to quickly get to that question there that's coming from Arasha on Twitter. Should Jones fight the winner of Miocic versus Ngannou? They're saying that they fancy Jones versus Adesanya over potential Jones and Ngannou should Ngannou get the belt. Listen, that's 100% happening. John Jones's heavyweight debut, and Nick might disagree with me on this, but from speaking to Dana and again putting the pieces of the jigsaw together, John Jones's heavyweight debut will be against the winner of Stipe versus Francis. That is what is going to happen. And if it comes through that, then who knows what's going to happen. I'm sure that there will be a narrative of maybe trying to piece together the Adesanya fight. Listen, I know that you're a massive Jones fan. You're convinced that Jones has become the heavyweight champion of the world. We don't know what he looks like at heavyweight. We know what Stipe Miocic looks like at heavyweight. We know what Francis Ngannou looks like at heavyweight. So let's see, man. Let's see how it all plays out. But I would back you. I would back you in your thoughts of saying that Jones, at some point this year, will become the heavyweight champion.
Yeah, I think people just forget how good John Jones truly is. And I honestly insist that his current run at light heavyweight, his most recent run at light heavyweight, you know, those type of fighters he would have smoked earlier in his career. I think the fear went for him at light heavyweight a long time ago. He stuck around too long. He's gone stale there. You know, the Gustafsson DC big fights, you know, are really the last bastion of light heavyweight. There's been nobody to be able to touch him since. And yes, there's been one or two close fights and judges' decisions, but I honestly put that down to, and this is no slight on the rest of that weight division, but I just put it down to John Jones being bored. Kind of like Khabib, where Khabib's made the decision, you know what, I'm betting all these guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to ride off into the sunset. I'll come back when there's someone worthy of me. John Jones has continued because this is what he does, but he's got bored and he's become flat and he's become a little bit safety first himself, and he's not as experimental, and he hasn't got the fear. You know, I truly believe even champions, any fighter will tell you, without the fear going into a fight, you're never going to produce your best performance. You need that fear factor of, oh my God, I could get smoked here. I could get embarrassed here. I could lose my record or my belt or whatever it may be. John Jones, I don't think has really had those inner demons for a long time. Going to heavyweight, woof, them demons are back. Standing across from Stipe Miocic, the most successful UFC heavyweight of all time, standing across from the beast that is Francis Ngannou, that will drive fear into any man, even Johnny Bones Jones. So you better believe this move to heavyweight for him is going to, I believe, kickstart a real new period, a new era in John Jones's fighting career. I think he will become heavyweight champion this year. He will go down as the GOAT, and he will define his legacy. And listen, let's see how keen Israel is to fight John Jones when John Jones is laying out Stipe or Francis Ngannou and lifting that belt above his head at 250 pounds. Let's see how keen he is then, eh?
Look at you. You're absolutely the biggest John Jones fan in the world, are you? Hyped up. It's quite nice that we're talking about John because of the narrative that he once had with Rashad and the narrative that we're seeing this weekend in the main title fight between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. For those that are just joining us on this UFC 258 weigh-in show, we're still waiting for two fighters. Ricky Simon and Bobby Green have not weighed in as of yet. Everybody else has. And thankfully, they're all on weight. We did have a little bit of a scare earlier on with Kamaru Usman because he tried to hit the scales with one of those Bane-like COVID protector masks, which took him over his weight, only by half a pound. He took the mask off, and then he hit 170 championship weight on the nose. Gilbert Burns weighed in around about 20, 25 minutes after him and hit 170 as well. So we've got a title fight. We've got a co-main event. Everybody else is on the money as well. Bar, obviously, Bobby Green, who we're waiting for, who's taking on Jim Miller in the lightweight division. And we're also waiting for Ricky Simon, who is taking on Brian Kelleher. So once they hit the scales, we will obviously talk you through that. But going back to the narrative of these two teammates going at it, been speaking to Kamaru quite a lot about the Rashad comparisons of whether it be the Ultimate Fighter, becoming champion, leaving gyms, fighting teammates. We know how that ended up for Rashad. He was the guy that left the gym. he was the guy that ended up getting beat in the coming together of teammates fights. Do you think there's a potential there for this really mirroring itself, like Kamaru seems to think that the early parts of the career have mirrored?
It could well do, you know. As I say, the fight itself, it can play out in so many ways, and you throw in the anomaly that is a teammate fighting a teammate. It's probably happened a dozen times maybe in the UFC in the last 25 years or whatever it may be. And when you look down that list of teammates, former teammates fighting each other, I'm trying to remember the ones who actually called for the fight, the ones that stepped forward. And Johnny Bones Jones replaced Rashad to fight Shogun to fight for the belt. And that was what annoyed Rashad, was the fact that, oh, wait a minute, you're my protege, really. Rashad was like captain at Jackson Wink. And then when John became champ, it was like, okay, we'll see you later, Rashad. John's the guy now. And you know, he had to go and start Black Zillions and everything else. So weirdly, it's not always the guy who calls for the fight that necessarily wins it, which would be the case here. But like, you know, we had Garbrandt versus Dillashaw, which was a great showdown. Cowboy Cerrone against Melvin Guillard. I think Melvin Guillard's had a couple of teammate versus teammate fights. In fact, Jackson Wink's had quite a few, actually. John Bones Jones and Rashad, and Arlovsky versus Travis Brown, Arlovsky versus Overeem. There's been a few out of Jackson Wink, so it's always unusual. And one thing that the fallout from all there as well, just looking down a list that I've got, none of those guys ever trained with each other ever again. None of those guys ever became friends again because, listen, when you spill blood on the training mats, it's teammates. When you spill blood in the octagon, especially when there's a belt on the line, you can forget about Christmas card lists.
Yeah, it does change the narrative and the relationship dynamic forever. Sometimes for good, but not necessarily always the case. Like you said, there's a lot on the line, including egos this weekend between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns for the Welterweight Championship. Looks like there's a little bit of action going on at the Apex. Is somebody about to hit the scales? As I said 2 moments ago, we're only waiting for two more fighters.
Out there, next fighter to the scale, competing in the UFC's featherweight division tomorrow, Ricky Simon.
Here we go. Ricky Simon taking on Brian Kelleher. As Nick said earlier on when Brian Kelleher was on the scales, this could be the fight of the night. There might be a bonus attached to this because these two are absolute lunatics. Ricky Simon's second appearance in 4 weeks, taking on Brian Kelleher.
$145.5, the official weight for Ricky Simon.
Easy.
There you go.
These two are absolutely bonkers, as I say. They're not going to have to go looking for each other. Ricky Simon, 17-3. There's losses in the UFC as well against Rob Font and Uriah Faber. Two big names, you know, another level up, and that's where he's got to aspire to be. That Uriah Faber one must have hurt him hard because that was a big opportunity to get a scalp like Uriah Faber, and that was a big setback for him. But he can't afford to lose to Kelleher. But the great thing is, as you say, these guys are in a similar place in the UFC roster, and they both know only one way to fight. All-out aggression, all-out attack. It's going to be fun.
There you go. We're just waiting for Bobby Green, who's taking on Jim Miller at 155 pounds. Can you see that tweet on our screen at the moment? See, this is the type of stuff that we get during these social media type of shows. Obviously, there's loads of people sending us questions. Can you discuss this, lads? Can you discuss this? What do you think about this in the UFC? And then we get Machiavelli. We get Paulie MMA on Twitter. Can't believe that Mr. and Mrs. Burns named their sons Gilbert and Herbert. Why? What's wrong with it? I kind of like it, man. I kind of like it. Anyway, each to their own. You're more than welcome to interact with us on Twitter and via our Instagram as well. So ping them in our way. We've already discussed everything that's going on with Leon Edwards and the situation there with his fight falling off against Khamzat Chimaev. We've spoken about the Khabib situation, of course. We've talked about what this means for the welterweight champions this weekend. Who will be the fighter of the year at the end of 2021? Do you know something? This is crazy, and I kind of touch back to what happened in 2020, answering this question. Our fighter of the year on Open Mat was, of course, Kevin Holland. Now, Kevin Holland put a mad run together in the space of, 7 months, 8 months? It wasn't even a full year when he put those 5 victories together, one of which being that incredible knockout of Jacare at the end of the year. I think we're going to get something like that again, unless Israel Adesanya goes and becomes the heavyweight champion as well as the light heavyweight champion. Then it's just a shutout. Then we just throw him the trophy, man. That's happening, all right? But even if John Jones, for example, comes out and becomes the heavyweight champion of the world, I still think there'll be something else. Because what we're experiencing right now in these COVID times are mad things. People taking on mad challenges, whether it be going down in weight to challenge for a belt or up in weight, challenging for multiple things, doing multiple fights in multiple weeks, all those types of things I think are going to happen again this year, especially in the first half of the year, whilst COVID seems to be sorting itself out. And I think that maybe that's where we're going to find the fighter of the year. I don't know where you're at, Nick. Maybe you're saying, listen, if Jones becomes heavyweight champion, he's the fighter of the year, end of. I don't know, but that's where I'm at with it.
Listen, there's the old adage: there's fighting, and there's the heavyweight. There's heavyweight fighting. It's a different ball game.
There he is.
It's a
He's not going to
different
back
ball
against
game.
John Jones, is he?
If Johnny Bones Jones, sorry, pardon me, manners. When Johnny Bones Jones moves to heavyweight,
Bonnie Jones,
and gets that heavyweight gold lifted above his head, then Johnny Bones Jones for me will be fighter of the year 2021. I think Valentina Shevchenko is worth keeping an eye on as well. I think Valentina, if she can get that third fight with Amanda Nunes up at bantamweight, could become a 2-weight world champion. I think she's really got a good look in as well. But listen, look at this lightweight division, man. This lightweight division has got so much potential to throw up 3 or 4 fights for one guy to end the year with the belt around his waist, 2 or 3 wins against top contenders. I think the fight of the year could well come from the lightweight division.
I think you're absolutely bang on. And there's 2 standouts at the moment, aren't there, that have delivered stellar moments on Fight Island. Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. There you go. They're there at the moment. If they're going to do that again to somebody else, and who knows, have belts wrapped around their waist by the end of the year, I think that's where the conversation is going to be. Who knows? Listen, let's chuck something in there. Conor, he's back training. We've seen him doing his thing on his bike out in Dubai, enjoying himself and getting himself back in full fitness. What if he can come back and get 2 stellar wins and maybe become champion by the end of the year? Fighter of the year? What do you reckon, Nick?
Of course, absolutely. Never mind comeback of the year. Fight of the year, absolutely. Listen, from where Conor is right now, that performance against Dustin Poirier, great first round, but really got dominated by those leg kicks. Money in the bank for Dustin Poirier, then getting finished. Conor McGregor got finished in the manner that Conor McGregor finishes people. He didn't get submitted. He didn't suddenly run out of gas. He got targeted, he got game planned, and he got knocked out, which is why let's be honest, the Manny Pacquiao fight has imploded for him. Otherwise, he'd be going and fighting Manny Pacquiao, as was the plan. But getting knocked out has stopped all that. Getting knocked out has made Conor go back to the drawing board, made Conor go back to rebuilding and really focusing on how he wants to move forward as a professional fighter, as a prize fighter. He can't dip into boxing and go here, there, and everywhere. If he wants to realise his legacy, and he really does want to leave the highlight reels behind that he proclaims he does, then he's got to get his nose back in the dirt, he's got to work hard, and he's got to graft his way through this lightweight division. If he was to do that this year, if he was to get 2 wins this year, maybe fight for the belt at the end of the year, end the year as the champion again, calling Khabib back out of retirement for a fight in 2022, categorically, Conor McGregor would be the fighter of the year, of course.
Interesting stat there that's just come up on our screen from Trent Rainsmith. Thank you so much for tweeting us, Trent. Kamaru Usman's bottom position time in the UFC? ? I like it when people do that. They're not asking us the question. Look at him there. He's answering it as well. He's answering his own question. All of 2 seconds. It is sensational. It's an unbelievable stat. Some of the stats around the grappling exchanges of Kamaru Usman in the UFC are absolutely mind-blowing, mate. Absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But what we need to take into consideration is that he is fighting a former Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champion who kind of knows what he's doing from bottom position. So it's all right, Kamaru Usman being on top and doing his thing and being in half guard, full guard, whatever he has. I'm sure on the mats, Gilbert Burns has some type of answer for that, and that is for me kind of what I'm fascinated with the most. On the feet, it's a captivating fight. and that would be brilliant for all fans sat at home watching, because we want to see two lads leather the living daylights out of each other. But when it hits the mat, how does that play out? That's what I'm as a bit of a geek, that's what I'm really fascinated in. Can Gilbert win those grappling exchanges and get his jiu-jitsu game going on an elite level wrestler? That's fascinating.
But as that suggests, though, if it hits the mat, if he, because Kamaru's never been taken down and he's never been knocked down. So I'd like to know, those 2 seconds must have been some kind of hip toss or something like that, because no one's ever taken Kamaru down, no one's ever knocked him down. So there's something there that Gilbert Burns has got to do before everybody else. And you mentioned they're fighting off his back, getting submissions. It's hard, man. It's hard to submit anybody off your back, no matter how good a black belt you are. I think the opportunity for Gilbert Burns is maybe tying up them arms, looking for Kimuras, yeah. Well, I mean, up close with his grappling, he's got to try and target arms, target necks, and look for as the fight's getting pulled down, as Kamaru's dragging him down using that wrestling pedigree that he's got. That's when Gilbert Burns has got to look to lock up an arm or try and grab a heel or something like that, do something a bit different. Because, as you say, Kamaru is an impossible guy to take to the ground. So your chances of getting him on the ground to submit him are slim, unless you get hold of him while you're still in their feet and then drag it down to the mat, or allow you to drag it down to the mat. It's fascinating, man. It's a fascinating fight.
Brilliant to see Herbert Burns, Gilbert's brother, on social media there, saying that his brother's going to become the first Brazilian welterweight world champion. And Gerard makes a great point as well on social media. Again, Gerard, thank you very much for getting involved. He's excited to see Usman's teaming up with Trevor Whitman. Listen, I know they've had a fight previously. The Masvidal fight, they were working together, because obviously Usman up sticks, left the gym in preparation for Burns. The fight fell through. So therefore, I think he had 4-5 weeks with Trevor Whitman and working with Justin Gaethje up in Denver, Colorado. He's had a lot more time to implement that game. And I find Trevor Whitman one of the most fascinating people in mixed martial arts. Whenever we're around him and he comes and joins us on shows like what we're doing right now, I'm sure that if we were at the Apex right now, he would have been part of this program, and we could have had a little bit of a chinwag about how he's going about preparing Kamaru for this fight. I know he did the same when we had the Justin Gaethje Khabib fight and we did a live weigh-in show. He is meticulous. He's the way that man's brain works, and the way that he sees a fight and how he picks a game plan for a fight is absolutely top class. And you're right, Jared. I think it is going to be interesting to see what new tools he has added to the Kamaru Usman game.
Yeah, again, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier on about Kamaru being very safety first against Masvidal, and it was all about getting the win rather than looking for a sensational finish, pulling the trigger. Far too long holding him up against the fence, stomping on his feet. The fans don't want to see that. We want to see something a bit more entertaining, and I think Trevor Whitman having more time with Kamaru Usman now, he'll want to stamp a little bit on him as well, because at the end of the day, when you inherit a world champion as a coach, of course, the old coach is still the one getting the plaudits. Henry Hooft and the team are still the guys that made him. They made him a champion. You just inherited him. And so far, the one input that Trevor Whitman has had was a pretty boring 25 minutes with Masvidal, who was late notice too. So Whitman needs to, and he'll know this himself, he'll want to stamp his own little message on Kamaru Usman. Don't be surprised if Kamaru Usman comes up with something just a little bit different, a little bit something we haven't seen before, just so Trevor Whitman can let us all know, listen, I've taken this guy as a champion, yes, but I've now taken him to the next level.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he's rubbing shoulders with Justin Gaethje. We know what Justin Gaethje is all about. He's all action. He's all about those highlight reels, isn't he? And I'm not saying that Kamaru Usman is going to become Justin Gaethje, not at all. But even just a percentage of that personality, of that friendship rubbing off on him, and therefore going into his performance at the weekend, can only be a good thing for fans sat at home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. Here's a good one from Alex. It's Tony Ferguson's birthday. Where does he rank amongst fighters never to win a full UFC belt?
What are you doing? What are you doing? We did a show on this, didn't we? I'm sure we did a program on this maybe a year, 18 months ago or something on BT Sport, where we were talking about all the greats that have never won a UFC. I think my number one was Vanderlei. maybe, I think. Anyway, there you go. He's up there, man. Tony Ferguson is right up there, isn't he? I mean, the run that he went on was absolutely sensational. Absolutely sensational. And he just ran into Justin Gaethje at the wrong time. And it's looking now, obviously off the back of the 2 defeats that he's had, that Tony Ferguson is done. I don't think he's done. I think he's still got a lot more to offer. But it's up to it must be very difficult for him now to not only get remotivated off the back of being right on the cusp of those title shots and preparing yourself for Khabib on so many occasions. But if he's got that motivation, if he's got that hunger, if he's got that fire going again, I think Tony Ferguson's still a force at lightweight. Maybe even welterweight.
Yeah, maybe. There was a time there when, had he fought Khabib first time around before one of, 5 fights fell off, when he really could have, before Khabib maybe evolved to the next level himself, maybe Tony Ferguson indeed was his kryptonite. And maybe that would have been the exact perfect time, and unfortunately that fight fell off so many times that the UFC just had to move on and make something else. And then, of course, they make Justin Gaethje, and suddenly Tony Ferguson's made to look like an old man. So, yeah, for me, I'm opposed to you. I think Tony Ferguson, he does look like his days are done as a contender. That's not to say his UFC tenure's done, but his days as a top contender in the any weight division, for me, look to be done. He's got a lot of work to get back in there. But other names I'll throw in, one guy from last weekend. It was devastating to see Alistair Overeem losing the manner that he did, because I truly thought he was going to go on a run this time and finally realise that dream. But again, he runs into Alexander Volkov with a career-best performance. And now Overeem looks like he's 18 months, 2 years, maybe another 3 or 4 wins away from any hope of fighting for the heavyweight title. And, for me, a guy like Overeem, who technically and in terms of experience and just his ability on the ground with his feet, he's one of the best heavyweights we've ever seen in the UFC. And it's kind of a travesty that he will never be UFC champion, because he is technically that good, in my opinion. Overeem, I think he's brilliant. And who else can we throw in there? Cowboy Cerrone, of course, just for time saved. The guy's a legend. Uriah Faber. These are all guys that never got to hold the UFC title. But Tony Ferguson's certainly in the top 10, Alex. Let's give you that.
But isn't that the beauty of this sport and the beauty of the UFC? Because, listen, people know that me and you cover boxing, right? And they seem, in boxing, from all the different sanctioning bodies, they seem to dish out world championships like sweets. And therefore, everybody can, in some way, shape or form, claim that they've at once been a champion, whether it be a full champion, whatever it may be, right? Everybody seems to be able to hold that narrative at some point in their career. Whereas in the UFC, it's not supposed to be like that. It's only the best of the best. It is supposed to be it's supposed to be a very tough thing to become the undisputed champion in any type of fight sports, but the UFC kind of hold on to that. And as you're just mentioning, some of the names that we are talking about there, the Cowboys of this world, the Tony Fergusons of this world, in any other walk of life, they would have been world champion. No doubt about it. But it is elite, and it is very, very difficult in order to achieve those dreams. And that's why I suppose that we're all absolutely high as kites when it comes to covering UFC, because we know that when someone says, I was once a UFC world champion, you know full well that they were absolutely mustard at what they did and fully deserved it. Just on that chat of world champions, we started the show, I think we're talking about the amount of champions that are in action over the next 40-odd days. The UFC has 11 undisputed champions, and 7 of those are going to be fighting over the next month and a bit. 5 of them are taking on the number 1 or number 2 contender in their weight class, with 2 of them fighting each other. That fight between Izzy and Jan Blachowicz. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Nick. Put you on the spot. Which one? You can have one. Which one are you looking forward to the most out of all those title fights that's coming up over the next 40 days?
Adesanya versus Blachowicz. I'm just fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by it just because I think, listen, do I think he's got unfinished business at middleweight? Absolutely I do. I think there's a lot of great fights to be made there, but just to dare to be great in the manner that he is doing, just to move up to light heavyweight. Is it because Jan Blachowicz he thinks is a bit of a weak champion in a similar vein that GSP came back to fight Michael Bisping? Probably, quite possibly. Mm-hmm. But underestimate nobody, certainly someone with UFC gold wrapped around their waist, underestimate your peril. And that's what makes it so fascinating. I think that as we build towards that fight, we're going to get so carried away and so excited about what Israel Adesanya is trying to do. And we won't be the only ones. The whole of the MMA world will all be enamored by Israel Adesanya and his bid to become one of the greatest of all time, simultaneous champion, all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, cold, hard steel Jan Blachowicz is just going to be in deepest, darkest Poland, chopping wood up with his bare hands and just like, chewing nails and everything else that Jan likes to do. And he's going to turn up like a monster on the night. And I just think that's going to be absolute flames. Anytime when someone tries to do something out of the box, out of the ordinary, become great, how can you not look forward to those moments with sleepless nights?
Do you, even though that's the one that you're looking forward to the most, do you think that one will be the best fight out of all the title fights that we've got?
Listen, we're on the precipice of Usman Burns here, son. I'm just looking forward to this one. Fight of the year contender. I actually think we could get a fight of the year contender right here this weekend, UFC 258, because there's so many stories to talk about as we've bored you to death for the last hour and a half. The teammates thing, the changing teams team, the jiu-jitsu against the grappling, the stand-up war, the power, the length, everything. It's got all these amazing facets coming into this fight. And I just think right now, if Usman Burns will live up to the hype this weekend, and I think it will maybe set the bar high for the next 3 months to go. Come on then, boom. These guys have just put in a fight of the year, contender fight. Let's see what the rest of us can deliver.
I really hope that Kamaru Usman walks into that octagon with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, a little bit of ego. He says, right, I'm going to try and finish this fella. And we saw that in the Colby fight, didn't we? If we get a remake of what we saw 2 Decembers ago when Colby and Kamaru threw down, then we are in for an absolute treat. Prelims starting at 1 a.m., of course, on BT Sport, with that main card getting underway from 3 a.m. It should be an absolute cracking. As you can see there on screen, you watching this at home are having yours say via our social media channels. Teammates become rivals. Who've you got in the 258 main event? 64% going for the Nigerian nightmare over Durinho at 36%. Listen, what you're going off is what you've seen. And Kamaru Usman, no doubt about it, he's proven. He's done it. He's been there, done it, got the T-shirt. He knows how to win fights. That narrative of teammates, of both these men knowing each other very, very well, is what is absolutely riveting. And it will all come down to the attitude Kamaru Usman takes when we know what we're getting with Gilbert Burns. You're getting aggression, man. That's what you're getting. He's coming in there aggressive. He's coming for you. You know what he's going to do. What will Kamaru Usman do? Will he stand with him, or will he nullify him? That's the question. If he stands with him, you're right, Nick. I think we could get a fight of the year contender.
The fascinating thing when teammates fight each other is that, unlike in every other fight, when you're it's that whole thing of you build a game plan as a team during a 10-week camp or whatever, 12-week camp, whatever it may be. You make a game plan that you think may work. You look at tape. You maybe train with previous opponents. Maybe you get people in with a similar style to try different things on. But you're basically guessing at a game plan that's going to work. Let's get this in place. Let's action that. And we'll see if it works on the night and we can develop from there. The difference here is they don't have to game plan. They know how to fight each other. They know each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses. They know exactly how, both of them are as clear as day, probably clearer than they've ever been in their entire careers on how they win this fight. And they also know what they can't do to lose this fight because they've shared time on the mats. And that's what makes it so interesting. And that's why when Gilbert Burns got this breakthrough at welterweight, he didn't do a Daniel Cormier and go, yeah, my boy's champion, I'm just going to take a back seat and see what happens in the future, or I'm going to boil that. The kid's a lightweight. I'm going to go back down to lightweight because I only fought at welterweight to see during COVID. But, my mate's the welterweight champ. I'm going to go back to lightweight. I'm going to try and get in this lightweight mix. Gilbert Burns didn't do that. Gilbert Burns went, you know what, I quite like this welterweight. Quite like the fact I'm getting these opportunities. Boom, I'm on a run. You know what, I'm in the mix. Hell yeah, I'll fight the champion. Hell yeah, I'll fight a teammate. You've got to admire that mentality, but he wouldn't be doing that if he was getting ragdolled by Kamaru Usman in training every day. He's only doing it because he believes he can beat him.
And as well as that, with Kamaru leaving the gym, you would think that Gilbert's had full blast of all the training partners that have obviously worked with Kamaru down the years. So he will be getting that work off those people that will say, well, I don't know if he did this with you in a fight or on our grappling exchanges, but he most certainly did it against me. So keep an eye out for this, keep an eye out for that. The training partners that Gilbert Burns' exposal for this fight, he can't have it better. He literally cannot have it better because he's training with guys that have trained with Kamaru.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all guys that know probably how to fight like Kamaru. They know Kamaru's strengths as well. That's what makes it so fascinating. And listen, I'm not going to deny those stats. 2/3 Kamaru, 1/3 to Gilbert Burns. Probably about right. I think the bookmakers will have it the same way. But for me, when it comes down to it, I think it's a little bit more like a 50-50.
Ben Wilson's on our Instagram, and as I just want to keep pointing out, this is a fully interactive show. We are scheduled for another half an hour. We're waiting for Bobby Green. That's it. Everybody else has weighed in. The championship fight's done. They've made championship weight. We're just waiting for Bobby Green to weigh in. Once he does that, then the weigh-ins for UFC 258 will be complete. So we are scheduled to be with you for the next half an hour. He's got half an hour to weigh in. So whilst we're doing that, we'll just keep some narratives going and keep some conversation going from the world of UFC. And if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to throw them our way. Ben Wilson on Instagram. Thank you very much for this, mate. What is the most stacked division right now? I think it's without question lightweight, isn't it? As you look at depth, and I'm talking top end, the guys that can legitimately challenge for a title, the middle guys that could break into that top 5, and then even further down, it just seems week after week we get unbelievable lightweight fights in the UFC.
Yeah, of course, the lightweight division is red hot. You know, it always has been. It's always been the toughest division. Lightweight and welterweight have always been the toughest divisions, and right now, lightweight is it's because of Khabib. Khabib stepping back has absolutely breathed new life into that weight division. And I kind of think John Jones stepping away from light heavyweight had the opportunity to do it at light heavyweight as well. It's only the fact that obviously the middleweight champion jumping up to light heavyweight has kind of stalled its progress. But another weight division that we're all super excited about, of course, is for the same reason. The champion retired. Bantamweight becomes alive again. We've got a new champion in the bantamweight division. We've got Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen, Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw, Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes. There's 6, 7, 8 guys there who are chomping at the bit below Petr Yan. So the bantamweight division 2 is going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, definitely. 145, 155, and Sean O'Malley as well being back out very soon as well in that 145 division. It is bantamweight, lightweight. That's probably where it's at. It's interesting that you mentioned light heavyweight there with John Jones stepping away from it, because of course we've got the title fight between Izzy and Jan Blachowicz. But if you look around those contenders there's some serious cats, man. There's some serious players, and we know that we're going to get the Dom Reyes and Yuri Prochazka fight, which we're all excited about. Prochazka burst onto the scene, didn't he? The UFC scene, that is. Anybody that's been following his career for any period of time knows that he's been cutting it elsewhere. But he burst onto the UFC scene on the UFC Fight Island with an unbelievable knockout of Volkan Oezdemir. Nobody's done that. Nobody does that to Oezdemir. Prochazka ran up and he literally announced himself in that light heavyweight division. And you've got Reyes and various others. Rakic, you can name a couple there that are really on the cusp of something very, very special. That division's bubbling nice.
Yeah, and again, that's why it was disappointing that Adesanya jumped over there now. Listen, I get it. He's a superstar and he wants to do superstar things, so it makes sense if he UFC. Just doesn't make sense for the rest of these light heavyweights, the Serkinovs and the Ankalaev, who looks like an absolute beast. And of course, Paul Craig, Scotland's own Paul Craig. He's done it the hard way. He's got himself in the top 15, and you better believe that Paul Craig's in the mix for the big fight this year as well. So light heavyweight is, it's just a shame, as I say, Izzy's going to make it stall a little bit, because more than anything, Glover Teixeira deserves his shot, doesn't he?
Right, we've got to talk tough. Ultimate Fighter 29. We know that it's coming back this year. We've spoken to Dana about it many, many occasions, and he says, listen, we're going to start filming that in the summertime. And he's kind of alluded this week that it will be welterweights as team captains. That's what they're working towards. It's got to be Masvidal and Colby, hasn't it? That's what it's got to be. It can't. Can it be anybody else? I know Nate Diaz is classing himself as a 170 fighter, but Masvidal Colby's the perfect narrative for the Ultimate Fighter.
The most fascinating thing about it all, as well, is I can't wait to see what Colby's new personality is, because his old one's no longer president anymore. So he needs a whole new shtick now, doesn't he? So it's going to be interesting to see what Colby comes back and reinvents himself as. But yeah, of course, listen, Tough has got to be the perfect mix of top contenders, plenty of trash talk, loads of needle, and that's how you get Tough Gold. And those two guys have got that in abundance. You know, they clearly hate each other. They're completely different personalities, and they're both top contenders at 170. So it makes absolute sense to get that done.
And a fight between them just to top it off for International Fight Week. Oh my days, just sprinkle. Dealers all in. Just dealers all in. We're all in on that, aren't we?
I can't even call that one either, you know. It's, obviously if Colby wants to wrestle and make it an ugly fight like he has done in the past and utilise his grappling skills, then of course you would favour Colby Covington. If he decides that he wants to stand and bang and have it out with Masvidal, then of course you would favour Masvidal. Again, like all these great matchups, the reason they're great matchups is that there's so many ways to win and so many ways to lose, and it's how they approach it psychologically. As I say, Colby Covington's away somewhere at the moment trying to invent a new personality. What that new personality looks like is going to be interesting to see how he moves forward.
Might come as Tom Brady or something like that, eh? He's a hero, Tom Brady. Maybe he can reinvent himself as that type of guy.
He'll have Biden's autobiography, won't he? Just walking around with Joe Biden's autobiography.
No. I think that's totally against everything that he wants to do. Great question, Tom. He's slipped into the comments on the live stream, so thank you very much for joining us throughout the course of the afternoon. We are still waiting for Bobby Green to weigh in. 24 minutes for him to hit the scales. Everybody else has done so. Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, bang on 170. We have a championship fight for UFC 258. Just a quick reminder, BT Sport, that's the place to go. 1 a.m. for the prelims, 3 a.m. for that main card. Every time I see this fella walk on in here and have a bit of a mess about with the scale, I get excited, and then he's walked off again. Anyway, Tom slipped into the comments on our YouTube channel. Who is the UK's best hope of being the next UFC world champion? You know what he's going to say, Tom, right? Why have you thrown this question our way?
2 fights, Tom. We're
Tom,
2 fights.
Tom.
2 fights away.
Go on. Finish it off, because Tom might not know, but I assume Tom watches this on a regular basis. He'll know what you're going to say now. Go on, mate.
Win number 1, Marvin Vettori. Yeah. Win number 2, Israel Adesanya. Done. Simple. Simple as that, Tom. Simple as that.
Who's that? Who's going to do that?
The gorilla, baby.
The one and only.
The gorilla.
The gorilla.
Do you know what's a good? Do you know what would work for the gorilla, actually? Marvin Vettori win. Tough's back. Till Adesanya, Tough coaches. Ooh, yes. Sign me up. Sign me up.
Listen, the obvious answers are Darren Till, Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is within... He's that far, isn't he? I mean, he should be there. But he's that far. And obviously, with the Hamzat fight falling off, it's going to be interesting to see how he is matched up next. Once we know that, we'll then kind of know how far he is away from a title shot. Because speaking to Kamaru Usman this week, he acknowledges fully that Leon Edwards he's earned the shot. He should be getting the shot. Gilbert Burns has said near enough the same thing. It's going to be interesting to see how this fight plays out the weekend. If it's an absolute cracker, we're obviously going to be clambering for a rematch, aren't we? Go on, let's give it us again. We want to go again. But if it's a one-sided shutout, you're going to have to look for other contenders. There is no standout guy at the moment, bar Leon. He's the guy that you could probably make the argument for because of the run that he's on. Of course, there's bigger names. Masvidal, Colby, no doubt about that. That makes more business sense for the UFC. But they've just been in with Kamaru, and Kamaru will say that, no doubt. And I know that Leon's already been in with Kamaru. He ended up getting beat. But this run since kind of warrants that opportunity. So my answer, Tom, going a long way about it, would be Leon Edwards could be the next UFC world champion. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they match him up next.
Yeah, another one worth keeping an eye on, Tom, as well, is Arnold Allen. let's not forget about Arnold Allen. You know, he's incredibly talented. He's just had the terrible misfortune of not getting fights and fights falling off and everything else. But Arnold Allen is 100% legit. He worked hard to get into those rankings, and he could make a move if he gets the right fights. And with a name like Tom, we've got to end with the heavyweight as well. Tom Aspinall gets a huge breakthrough fight against Arlovsky next up. And while I don't think he will get a top 10 ranking, don't be surprised if Tom Aspinall sneaks into the top 15. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon. I think they're still trying to go quite slowly with Aspinall. What he lacks at the moment is experience. What he needs is fights. But getting a big win over someone like Andrei Arlovsky would be a massive moment in his career. It's co-main event, that fight as well, over in Las Vegas in a few weeks' time. That would be a massive moment for Tom Aspinall. And then you can say, Tom, to everyone, I've been following Aspinall a long time. When he wins the heavyweight title, probably could be another 2 or 3 years yet, but Tom Aspinall will one day be right in the mix for that heavyweight title. You better believe it.
There you go. Backseat boys, there's Nicholas. Do keep an eye out for those two lads because they've both got really good potential breakout moments. Arlovsky for Aspinall, and obviously we've got Sadiq Youssef for Arnold Allen. And everybody knows that I picked Sadiq as my one to watch a couple of years agai in the UFC, so it's a bit of a bittersweet fight. But again, Arnold Allen's looked really, really good, and that should be an absolute cracking fight. Little bit upset, actually, for Jai Herbert. He was due to, is it next week? He was due to fight. His fight fell off. Again, we're talking about breakout moments for fighters. Jai did extremely well with Cage Warriors, didn't he? He came over to the UFC, and he's had a baptism of fire, the fella. Straight in, no messing about, no gimmies. And we love that. We don't want people to have pitter-patters and pad a record out. Jai's good enough to fight some of the top guys, and he was due to fight Drakkar Klose, which would have been a wonderful, wonderful fight for Jai, but he ended up contracting COVID, so he's off that. Fingers crossed they can get him a fight made soon. But we're all right. I think we're all right. I mean, we even saw last weekend, didn't we? Molly McCann in action. And even though she came up short and got beat in that fight, Molly, there's most certainly improvements. Anybody that watched that fight knows full well what Molly does. She's brilliant. Her game's on the feet, aggression on the feet. That's what Molly McCann's all about. So that part of the game's ticked. We've seen her do that in the UFC, and she's been working on her grappling exchanges and the jiu-jitsu. And although she got beat last week on my scorecard 29-28, we saw in that second round that she's most certainly making improvement. So again, keep an eye on Molly McCann because she's only a couple of fights away from getting ranked properly in that division, and then who knows what fight might be on the horizon for her.
Yeah, man. Listen, opportunities come thick and fast in the women's divisions because there just isn't the depth there like there is in the men's weight classes. So you're right. 2 or 3 wins for Molly, and suddenly she's ranked. So yeah, absolutely.
Leon Edwards versus Tony Ferguson at 170 on March 13th. Look at Mr. Sal here, smoking UFC. He's taking your job, Commissioner. What's going on here? He's making fights happen, son. Do you know something? I'm not against that. I am not against that fight at all.
Good shout.
Yeah. Leon Edwards.
That would see Tony go up to 170.
Yeah.
Whether Tony's interested in going up to 170 at this stage of his career is a different kettle of fish. But listen, anyone that's serious, whether it's a Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz, if they're serious about remaining as a contender and getting opportunities, Leon Edwards is the guy. He's number 3 ranked. He's the next guy in line after the title fight this weekend. If you're serious about wanting to become a UFC champion, then yeah, absolutely. Because listen, Tony Ferguson's got no way back at lightweight at the moment. His only hope really would be to fight either Conor in a bit of a comeback fight or maybe fight Nate Diaz. But if he's serious about being a contender, he should be banging on the door UFC right now asking for this Leon Edwards fight because Leon would take it. As long as he's guaranteed the next shot at the title, Leon would take Tony Ferguson next. You better believe that's true.
We're just waiting for Bobby Green to weigh in. He's due to fight Jim Miller at UFC 258 in the lightweight division. He's been brilliant all week, Bobby, actually, with his interviews and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed some of his conversations, but we're just waiting for him. We've got 15 minutes for him to hit the scales and hit 156 pounds non-championship weight. And fingers crossed he can do so. Here's our mate again. Hey, Nicholas, get excited, son. Bobby Green might be on his way. He's looking left. It's not happening, is it?
Come on, Bobby. He's never missed weight, Bobby Green, so I don't know what he's got us waiting for. I know he has
All right,
fought
our
up at
final
welterweight
fighter
in his
to
career,
weigh in
but
this
here we
morning
go.
in the UFC's lightweight division, Bobby King Green.
They are very different situations and scenarios, from weighing in and working out and cutting weight during COVID times. Let's see where he's at.
$156, the official weight for Bobby
He
Green.
made it. He made it.
24
that
for
wasn't
24. We will stare these athletes down here at the top of the hour.
There you go. John Anik just wrapping things up there. So everybody weighs in. And I apologise there if you heard Nick's dog in the background of the broadcast. There you go. Great stuff. Everybody weighed in. Have we got you, Nick? Have we got you back?
Sorry, someone knocked at the door and the dog went ballistic.
Yes, I thought so, mate. It did seem... I can still hear him. He's still enjoying himself. Maybe I thought he was just excited that Bobby Green had weighed in. And
Did he make weight? Did he make weight? I don't know. I waited 2 hours and I missed him make weight.
He made weight, £156, mate. He got the job done in the end. So there you go. For everybody that has maybe just dipped in and out of the broadcast here on BT Sport, every single fighter hit weight. We have a catchweight fight of £140 as well. Everybody on the money. But most importantly, that welterweight title fight. Your dog, shh, right? Shh, shh, blood, shh. That welterweight title fight is well and truly on. Both men hitting £170. No problems there. And it is on the line. Kicking off a Ferrari of title fights in the UFC over the next 40-odd days, where we're getting to see 7 undisputed champions in action. I'm going to let you need to go and take your dog for a walk, or maybe feed him, right? Because he's been watching you do the TV show for the last 2 hours. I can hear our producers scrambling for your microphone, switching it off in the background so it's not putting people off. I can tell you laughing, but I can't hear you because they've switched you off, mate. That's it. You've gone.
He's all right now.
Let the dog talk. Let the dog talk. He's all right. Let him
get the dog in. He's all right now. He just I think he's a massive Bobby Green fan, is what it is. So as soon as Bobby Green hit the scales, he just went absolutely ballistic. That's just the way he is, you know.
You know full well that that's either going to be a GIF or a meme from our social media boys. Raju looks after all our social media, and Alex, they're going, yes, lads, you've dished us up something good. We're sending you 2 clowns around the internet now. Brilliant. There you go. Listen, 1 o'clock in the early hours of Sunday morning, Saturday night. Come and join us for the prelims on BT Sport. And then the main card gets underway from 3 a.m. Kicking off with Maki Pitolo taking on Julian Marquez. Marquez in his UFC debut. You got Jim Miller and Bobby Green going at it. Bobby Green kept us waiting, but he made 156, so he's in that lightweight champion. Sorry, not lightweight championship fight. Lightweight bout. You've got Kelvin Gastelum and Ian Heinisch. A fight in the middleweight division with a lot on the line for both men's careers. The flyweight bout between Alexa Grosso and Macy Barber. How will Macy Barber bounce back after that defeat against Roxanne Modafferi? That's going to be a cracking co-main event to the welterweight title fight. Our main event over 5 rounds. Kamaru Usman defending his belt against Gilbert Burns. History on the line for both men. If Kamaru Usman wins that fight, that's 13 straight in the welterweight division, more than any other man in the history of the UFC, more than GSP. And if Gilbert Burns gets his hand raised and gets gold wrapped around his waist, he becomes the first Brazilian to become welterweight world champion. Brazilians are champions in every division other than welterweight. Can he complete the jigsaw? Make sure you come and join us from 1 a.m. on BT Sport for UFC 258. Thanks for your time. We'll catch you soon.
The Nigerian
Kamaru Usman, he is a monster.
12-0 in the UFC, yet to taste defeat.
I'm at the top of the mountain. I'm the champion.
I'm gonna fight for the title.
Kamaru Usman, I'm next.
He's gonna be a war.
So good on his feet, so good on the ground.
Gilbert Burns. Let's go!
I'll be at the top for a long, long time.
Kamaru Usman.
It's my job to go in there and put his dreams on hold.